The first time my daughter denied being my daughter, she did it while holding my elbow as if she were helping me over a curb. "This is Ruth," Claire told the silver-haired woman standing beside our table. "She's someone who helped me when I was young." The woman turned to me with a warm, distracted smile. How lovely. I looked at Claire. She had already shifted toward the next person waiting to congratulate her. Her fingers slipped from my arm. For one foolish second, I thought she might turn back and correct herself. "My mother," she would say. I don't know why I made that sound so strange. "This is my mother." Instead, she laughed at something a man in a blue dinner jacket said and touched the back of her neck, the way she always did when she was nervous. "Someone who helped me when I was young." I repeated the sentence in my head, trying to find a version of it that didn't mean what it meant. The dinner was being held in the ballroom of the Whitcomb Hotel, the kind of place that made ordinary people whisper even when nobody had asked them to. The ceiling was painted to look like twilight, and the chandeliers were shaped like branches coated in ice. Every table had a low arrangement of white roses, each flower open to the exact same degree. I wondered if there was a person downstairs threatening them. Claire had worried about my dress, not whether I had one, whether I had the right one. 3 days before the dinner, she came to my house with a garment bag and hung it over the pantry door. "You bought me a dress? I brought you an option." I have options. I know. The way she said it suggested that my options were brave but unwell. The dress she brought was dark green, long-sleeved, and expensive enough that I was afraid to drink coffee near it. I put it on because I wanted the evening to be easy for her. Claire had spent 20 years becoming the sort of woman who received awards in hotel ballrooms, and I understood that an evening like that came with rules. I just hadn't realized one of the rules was that I should not be recognized as her mother. The silver-haired woman was Judith Vale, the architect who had hired Claire straight out of graduate school. I knew this because Claire had told me stories about Judith for 2 decades. Judith could silence a conference room by removing her glasses. Judith once sent back an entire presentation because someone used the wrong shade of gray. Judith had taught Claire that if she walked into a meeting carrying a legal pad instead of a purse, men would assume she had something important written down. I had sent Judith a Christmas card for 11 years. She had never known I existed. "Is everything all right?" the man beside me asked. His name was Paul or Peter. His wife had introduced him before Claire came over, but the ballroom was noisy, and he had a soft voice built for libraries. "Fine," I said. He glanced at the untouched champagne in front of me. "You look like you just remembered you left the oven on." "I don't have anything in the oven." "Well, that's good. It might be better if I did." He studied me for half a second, decided I was joking, and laughed. At the other side of the room, Claire stood beneath a banner with her name printed on it in letters large enough to be seen from space. Claire Mercer Hale, Regional Achievement in Public Design. She looked beautiful. That was the inconvenient part. Her dark hair was swept back from her face, and she wore the pearl earrings I had given her when she finished graduate school. I had saved for those earrings by bringing lunch from home for 7 months. Tuna sandwiches, mostly. By April, I could smell canned tuna from 3 offices away. Daniel stood beside her, one hand resting lightly between her shoulder blades. He was tall, mild-mannered, and almost aggressively well-groomed. Daniel ironed his jeans. I had once walked into their laundry room and seen it happen. He caught my eye across the ballroom. His smile started, then hesitated, as if he had seen something in my expression that required further study. Before he could come over, a photographer called to him. I sat down. My place card said, "Ruth Mercer, guest." Claire's said, "Honoree." The practical part of my mind began offering explanations. Claire was overwhelmed. Judith had appeared unexpectedly. There were donors waiting. There was a photographer, a schedule, a podium, a hotel employee carrying a tray of tiny crab cakes with the desperate focus of a heart surgeon. Claire had spoken quickly. People spoke badly when they were under pressure. Still, the sentence had been unusually complete. Someone who helped me when I was young. Not an old family friend, Not even Ruth. She had built a little bridge between us and then blown out the middle. Dinner arrived in stages, a salad with 3 leaves, a piece of salmon balanced on something yellow, 2 asparagus spears laid across the plate like hands on a coffin. Paul or Peter leaned toward me. I think the yellow stuff is squash. I think it's insulation. He laughed again, louder this time, and his wife looked over. I was grateful for him. I was also irritated that Claire had seated me with strangers while Daniel's parents were at the table closest to the stage. His mother, Marjorie, turned around twice to smile at me. The second time, she lifted her wine glass as though we were fellow survivors of something. Claire had explained the seating the week before. "Your table is actually better for conversation," she said. "Better than what? The front tables are all firm people and sponsors. You'd be bored. You'll be at a front table." "I'm the honoree, Mom," she had said Mom then. The master of ceremonies tapped the microphone. A sound like a cannon went through the ballroom, followed by polite laughter. He introduced himself as the president of something, thanked the sponsors, and began listing Claire's projects: a public library in Hanover, the rehabilitation center in Brookside, the old train depot she had converted into offices without covering the original brick. Each project appeared on a screen behind him, and each time the room applauded, I felt my chest lift in spite of myself. I had seen those buildings when they were still sketches on Claire's kitchen counter. There had been a period after graduate school when she woke at 4 every morning convinced she had chosen the wrong career. She would call me before sunrise and say, "Don't tell me it'll be okay." So I would say, "All right." Then we would sit in silence over the phone until she was ready to tell herself. That was before Daniel, before tailored jackets and hotel ballrooms, before she began saying, "We should plan something," when what she meant was, "You should plan something and tell me where to stand." The master of ceremonies described Claire as self-made. The phrase received applause. I looked at my hands in my lap. They were older hands than I pictured when I thought of myself. The veins stood up beneath the skin, and there was a pale burn mark near my thumb from a pan I had grabbed without a mitt the year before. Claire hated that scar. "You have oven mitts," she had said. I forgot. How do you forget heat? You forgot a husband once. She had stared at me, then laughed so hard she had to sit down. Her first marriage had been over by then, and we were allowed to joke about it. I tried to remember the last time I had made her laugh like that. When the applause ended, Daniel stepped away from the stage and came to my table. He crouched beside my chair, careful not to crease his trousers. "You doing okay? Everybody keeps asking me that." "Who else asked?" "The man next to me." Paul or Peter raised 2 fingers. "Peter," Peter asked. Daniel looked from me to Claire, who was standing near the podium while someone adjusted the microphone. "What happened with Judith?" he asked quietly. "So you heard. I was close enough. What did you hear? What did—" He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the tablecloth. "The introduction." I waited. Daniel was good at pauses. He worked in mediation, which meant he had built a career out of letting other people become uncomfortable before he did. "She's anxious," he said at last. "Is that an explanation or a diagnosis?" "Ruth, I'm just asking. She's been wound tight for 3 weeks. This award matters to her." "I know it does." She probably didn't even hear herself. That was possible. It was also the defense people offered when they had heard someone perfectly well and wished they hadn't. Daniel put his hand over mine. His palm was warm. "She loves you." I didn't ask whether she loved me. The lights dimmed before he could answer. Claire took the stage. Everyone in the ballroom turned toward her, chairs shifting, forks settling against plates. Daniel squeezed my hand and returned to his seat near the front. Claire placed both palms on the podium. She looked calm now, more than calm. She looked like the version of herself she had spent her whole adult life constructing. Bright, contained, grateful in a way that would not inconvenience anyone. She thanked the committee. She thanked Judith, calling her the first person who saw what I might become. She thanked Daniel for living with building models in the dining room and concrete samples in the shower. That got a laugh. Then she spoke about the early years. There were times when I didn't have connections or money or any idea what door I was supposed to knock on, she said. I learned to rely on discipline. I learned to make my own opportunities, and eventually I found people who became the family I built for myself. The room softened around her. People liked that sort of sentence. You could feel it. They leaned forward as if she had handed them each a small, flattering part in her success. I sat very still. My husband, Frank, had been dead for 24 years, but I heard his voice as clearly as if he had leaned down beside me. Don't leave during the speech, Ruthie. He had always called me Ruthie when he was trying to stop me from doing something dramatic. I'm not leaving, I whispered. Peter glanced over. Sorry, I said, talking to my dead husband. He nodded once. Mine tells me to buy better shoes. I looked at him. He lifted one foot under the table. She may have a point. A laugh escaped me before I could prevent it. It sounded wrong in the middle of Claire's remarks, and several people turned. Claire's eyes moved across the room, found me, and paused. For 1 second, something unguarded appeared in her face. Not guilt, not exactly. Fear. Then she looked down at her notes and continued. When she finished, the entire room stood. I stood too. I clapped until my palms hurt. Claire accepted the glass award with both hands, and Daniel kissed her cheek. Judith embraced her. The photographer's flash went off again and again. Nobody asked who I was. Afterward, Claire wanted pictures, first with Daniel, then with his parents, then with Judith and the committee. I waited near a fake marble column until she finally waved me over. There you are, she said, breathless. I nearly laughed at the choice of words. She placed the award in my hands while the photographer arranged us. It was heavier than I expected, a clear glass shape with one sharp point. Careful, Claire said. It scratches easily. I'll try not to ruin it. Her eyes moved to mine. Mom. There it was. Quiet now, with no one important listening. The photographer told us to move closer. Claire put one arm around my waist. I held her award against my stomach and smiled when the flash came. Neither of us mentioned what she had called me. I stayed through coffee. I said goodnight to Peter and his wife. I told Marjorie she looked lovely. Then I walked outside and stood beneath the hotel awning, where the March air smelled like wet pavement and car exhaust. Daniel found me first. The car's coming around, he said. I called a cab. You what? Claire came through the revolving door behind him, carrying the award against her chest. Why would you call a cab? She asked. I looked at my daughter, waiting to see whether she would ask the more important question. She didn't. Because, I said, I think I'd like to go home alone. Claire's face changed in small stages. First confusion, then recognition, then the quick tightening around her mouth that meant she had decided my feelings were badly timed. Ruth, Daniel said, let me drive you. You've been drinking. I had half a glass of wine 4 hours ago, and champagne, 1 sip. Then it would be tragic to waste such careful restraint. Go enjoy your car. The doorman looked straight ahead. He had probably watched hundreds of families come apart under that awning and knew better than to interfere before someone threw a shoe. Claire stepped closer. Can we not do this here? I'm waiting for a cab. You know what I mean. I do. That's the problem. A couple came through the revolving door behind her. The woman congratulated Claire, who turned automatically and thanked her with a bright smile. I watched my daughter perform happiness for 3 seconds, then come back to me with the smile gone. This is about what I said to Judith, she whispered. It's about a few things. It was a bad introduction. Yes, I was distracted. Yes. So you're going to take a cab 2 hours because I stumbled over an introduction. The award was still tucked against her chest. Under the awning lights, its sharp point appeared to grow out of her shoulder. Go back inside, Claire. There's nobody inside I care about more than you. That sentence might have reached me an hour earlier. Now it only made me tired. Then why was I the one person you couldn't name? Daniel looked down. Claire's eyes flicked toward him. You said you weren't getting involved. I'm not, he said. You're standing there looking involved. I'm standing here because your mother is about to spend several $100s making a point. I'm spending my own several $100s. Ruth, that isn't what I meant. A yellow cab turned beneath the hotel's covered drive. It was an older sedan with a dent above one wheel and a plastic pine tree swinging from the mirror. I had never been so relieved to see bad suspension. Claire touched my sleeve. Mom, please. I stepped away before she could close her fingers around me. I stayed, I said. I smiled for the picture. I didn't ruin your night. Don't ask for the ride home, too. Her hand fell. The driver got out and opened the back door. Daniel asked if I wanted him to make sure the driver knew the address. I told him I had been giving people my address successfully for 46 years. Before I got in, Claire said, "Are you coming Sunday?" We had planned to spend Sunday sorting my bedroom closet. That was how the move had entered its final stage, not through a grand decision, but through cardboard boxes appearing in every room, and Claire saying things like, "Do you really need 6 blankets?" "I don't know," I said. "What does that mean?" "It means I don't know." The doorman shut the door for me. Claire stood on the curb, still holding the glass award. Daniel moved beside her. They became smaller through the rear window, then disappeared when the cab turned onto the street. The driver glanced at me in the mirror. He was perhaps 60, with white hair pulled into a short ponytail and glasses that kept slipping down his nose. "Long ride," he said. "Yes. You sure you don't want a train?" "Not tonight. Train would be cheaper. I'm not feeling economical." He nodded as if this was a recognized medical condition. Bad wedding? Award dinner? Worse? Tonight, yes. He turned on the meter, then turned the radio down until a man discussing baseball became a murmur. That small kindness almost undid me. My phone buzzed twice before we reached the highway. "Daniel, let us know when you're home." Then Claire. This didn't have to become a whole thing. I read her message until the screen went dark. The highway was wet from an earlier rain, and every passing car dragged a silver tail behind it. I thought about Claire at 7, sitting at the kitchen table with her chin in her hand, while Frank tried to explain fractions using slices of American cheese. I thought about her at 24, calling me from a bathroom at her first firm because a partner had said her design looked surprisingly mature. I thought about her at 31, asleep on my couch for 3 weeks after Andrew left, while I kept the curtains closed because she said daylight made her feel accused. Then I thought about what she had said on that stage. The family I built for myself. There are sentences that hurt because they are cruel, and sentences that hurt because they explain years you had misunderstood. We reached my house shortly after 1 in the morning. The downstairs lamp was still on. I always left it burning when I went out at night, a habit Frank used to complain about while replacing every bulb with the cheapest ones he could find. The driver helped me out. "You want me to wait until you're inside?" he asked. "I'm 68, not 8. Those are the only ages worth waiting for?" I looked at him. He lifted both hands. "I'm waiting." I unlocked the door and waved after I turned on the hall light. He gave me one short honk before pulling away. The house smelled faintly of coffee and the lemon oil I had used on the dining table that morning. Everything was exactly where I had left it. My regular coat hung on the brass hook. 3 flattened moving boxes leaned against the wall. A roll of packing tape sat on the bottom stair. I took off the green dress and laid it across my bed. Claire had good taste. I looked elegant in it, even with my stockings pulled around my ankles and one earring still caught in my hair. The woman in the mirror might have been someone important's guest. I hung the dress carefully in the closet between a blue suit I had worn to Frank's funeral and a flowered robe Claire hated. Then I washed my face, put on Frank's old college sweatshirt, and went downstairs. There was an apartment brochure on the kitchen table. Claire had circled the floor plan we liked in blue ink. 1 bedroom, 1.5 baths, a balcony just wide enough for 2 chairs, if neither person expected to move their arms. 10 minutes from us, she had written in the margin. Below that, coffee whenever we want. I turned the brochure face down. Daniel texted again at 1:26. "Home?" I wrote yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. I'm sorry. I didn't answer because I couldn't tell whether he was sorry for what Claire said or sorry that the evening had become inconvenient. Maybe he didn't know either. I slept badly and woke late to my phone ringing on the nightstand. Claire. For a moment, I considered letting it stop. Then I answered because I had never been good at ignoring her. Even during the worst days of her first marriage, when she called me 5 times in one afternoon to explain why she was definitely not calling Andrew again, I answered every time. Hi, I said. Are you all right? I'm tired. You took a cab across the state. Technically, I took it halfway across the state. This isn't funny. No, it was expensive. She exhaled. I could picture her in her kitchen, one hip against the counter, coffee going cold beside her. Claire forgot every drink she poured when she was angry. I was up half the night, she said. So was I. I kept thinking about you in that cab. It was a perfectly acceptable cab. Why are you doing that? Doing what? Talking about the cab so we don't talk about anything else? I sat up. My head hurt behind my eyes. All right, let's talk about anything else. There was a brief silence. I'm sorry I introduced you badly. Badly. You know what I mean. I know what you said. I was trying to explain who you were to Judith while 3 people were waiting to speak to me. My brain stalled. It stalled directly between Ruth and Mother. Mom. You found it now. She made a low sound, part sigh and part warning. I am apologizing. No, you're explaining. What do you want me to say? I looked across the room at Frank's empty side of the bed. His reading glasses were still in the top drawer. I had tried once to give them away and brought them home again because the woman at the donation center tossed them into a plastic bin too carelessly. I want to know why you said it. I just told you. No. You told me why you were rushed. You didn't tell me why that was the sentence waiting underneath. You're making one clumsy sentence carry 30 years, and you use 6 words to get rid of 30 years. That is not what happened. It happened to me, Claire. I was there. So was I. We were quiet long enough that I heard a cabinet close on her end. Then she said, You do this every time something important happens to me. I felt my hand tighten around the phone. Do what? You find the one thing that wasn't about you and make it about you. I don't remember forcing you to introduce me. You know that's not what I'm saying. Then say what you're saying. Another cabinet closed, harder this time. You keep receipts, she said. For what? For everything. Every drive, every meal, every time you proofread a paper or paid for something or sat up with me. It all stays in a file somewhere. And if I don't give you the exact amount of gratitude you think you're owed, you pull it out. I got out of bed and crossed to the window. The backyard was pale and damp. A branch had fallen from the maple during the night and lay across the patio. I didn't mention any of those things. You didn't have to. You looked at me like I had erased your entire life. You introduced me as hired help. I did not. Then what would you call someone who helped when you were young? A person who mattered to me. Not enough to name the relationship. You can't stand that I have a life you didn't build. The words came quickly, but once they were out, neither of us moved past them. I watched water drip from the broken branch. I never said, I built your life. You don't have to say things for them to be present. That seems convenient. And there. That tone. You make me sound ungrateful, and then I spend the next week cataloging everything you've ever done so I can prove I'm not. Maybe you could stop cataloging and just call me your mother. I do call you my mother, when there's nobody important listening. That's unfair. Yes, I said, it is. She began crying then, which angered me because I wanted to cry first. Claire never cried neatly. Her breathing became uneven, and she tried to hide it by moving the phone away. I wanted one night, she said. One night for what? To be proud of myself without feeling like the ending belonged to everyone who helped me get there. There it was. Not the whole truth, perhaps, but more than she had intended to give me. I sat on the edge of the window seat. I didn't ask you to give me your award. No, you just wanted the room to understand your part. I wanted the room to understand who I was. To me or to them? The question was good enough to hurt. I thought about all the times I had introduced Claire to people by listing her accomplishments before they had asked. My daughter, the architect. My daughter who redesigned the Hanover Library. My daughter who lives in the city. I had told myself I was praising her. Maybe sometimes I was making sure people knew what kind of mother I had been. I don't know, I said. Claire's breathing quieted. That admission seemed to unsettle her more than an argument would have. I need to go, she said. All right, are we still coming tomorrow? I looked through the open bedroom door. A stack of flattened boxes waited in the hallway. Claire had written master bedroom on the top one in thick black marker. No. Because you're angry? Because I don't want to pack tomorrow. We only have 6 weeks. I know. Your deposit deadline is Monday. I know that too. Then what are you saying? I ran my thumb along the windowsill, collecting a thin line of dust. You said I turn help into an invoice, I said. Maybe I do. So I'm going to stop sending invoices you never asked for. That doesn't answer me. I'm also going to stop paying them. She went very still on the other end. Mom, what does that mean? I looked at the circled apartment brochure downstairs in my mind, the narrow balcony, the 2 chairs, Claire's blue handwriting promising coffee whenever we wanted. It means, I said, I don't think I'm moving. Claire did not answer immediately. I heard the soft electronic beep of her coffee maker and imagined it filling a cup she would forget to drink. You don't think you're moving, she said. No. 6 weeks before your lease starts. It hasn't started. You signed an application. An application isn't a lease. You paid a fee. I've wasted money before. That isn't the point. No, it isn't. She exhaled through her nose. You told me you wanted this. I did. For almost a year. I know. We looked at 11 apartments. 12. You refused to count the one with the red kitchen. It looked like a crime scene. It had excellent cabinets. Mom, stop. I closed my eyes. Claire was right about one thing. I used humor when I wanted to slip out of a hard conversation without appearing to run. Frank used to say I could turn a funeral into a discussion about the minister's shoes. I'm not sure I understood what I wanted, I said. You wanted to be closer to us. I wanted to be closer to you. That's what I just said. It isn't. Her voice sharpened. So this is punishment. I haven't punished you. You're canceling a move because of something I said last night. I'm reconsidering a move because of what last night showed me. What did it show you? That I can say something stupid when I'm nervous? You knew that already. At my first wedding, I thanked the florist twice and forgot to thank the minister. The minister still got to be the minister. Oh, come on. I could hear her walking now. Claire paced in straight lines when she was upset, usually from the kitchen island to the windows and back again. Daniel once measured the path and told her she had walked almost a mile during a phone argument with their cable company. She had not found that charming. We made plans, she said. Daniel moved his office furniture because you said you wanted the desk. I never asked for his desk. You said you liked it. I also like his car. I hope he hasn't put that in a box. This affects more people than you. There was the sentence that decided me. Not because it was vicious, because it was practical. Claire's whole relationship with me had become practical. My move affected where Daniel put a desk, how many dinner plates they stored, who waited for the plumber when both of them were working. I had mistaken being fitted into their schedule for being welcomed into their lives. I'm going to call the apartment office Monday, I said. Don't do that. I haven't decided anything permanent. You just told me you weren't moving. I said I don't think I am. That's not a meaningful distinction. It is when it's my address. She went quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was lower. Do you know how humiliating this is? I almost asked for whom, but I was too tired. No. I've told people you're coming. Marjorie found you a doctor. Daniel arranged for a parking permit. I told my office I'd need a few days off to help you settle. I'm sorry you'll have to update everyone. You don't sound sorry. I don't know what you want me to sound like. I want you to sound like my mother. That one landed cleanly. I pressed my fingers against my eyelids until colored circles moved in the dark. You wanted me to sound like someone who helped, I said. I'm trying to adjust. She hung up. For several minutes, I sat with the phone still against my ear. Then I got dressed and went downstairs to deal with the fallen branch because branches, unlike daughters, rarely objected to being cut into manageable pieces. The branch was thicker than it had looked from upstairs. I dragged it off the patio, stepped on the wet cuff of my pajama pants under my jeans, and nearly introduced my face to the bird bath. Excellent technique, Anita called from the other side of the fence. She was standing on an overturned flower pot, wearing a yellow raincoat and a knitted cap shaped like something a fisherman would regret. Anita had moved into the house behind ours 11 years earlier. Frank called her Rear Window because she knew everything that happened within 3 properties and considered curtains a hostile act. Are you spying on me? I asked. I'm checking whether you're dead. Your downstairs light was on at 1 in the morning. You can see my downstairs light? I can see Belgium if the weather is clear. She climbed down, disappeared, then came around through the side gate carrying pruning shears. Anita was 66 and had been a widow for 9 months. She spoke of her husband, Malcolm, with equal parts love and irritation, as if death had not excused him from leaving the garage in such a state. You're wearing yesterday's makeup, she said. I washed my face. You missed an eye. I wiped under both eyes with my sleeve. Fancy dinner go well? I had told her about Claire's award because I told Anita things I wanted repeated to nobody and analyzed by someone who had no investment in being gentle. Claire won. That wasn't my question. I lifted the thinner end of the branch while Anita opened the shears. She introduced me to her mentor as someone who helped her when she was young. Anita stopped squeezing. Those exact words. Maybe she has another mother. That would simplify things. Anita looked toward my house. Do you have coffee? Yes. Do you have the little cinnamon cookies? No. You knew I was coming over. I didn't. Then you have an excuse. We left the branch on the grass and went inside. Anita took off her raincoat but kept the cap on. Her hair had grown in unevenly after she cut it herself during the weeks Malcolm was in hospice. She had not corrected it, perhaps out of stubbornness or grief. With Anita, those were often the same thing. She turned the apartment brochure face up while I filled the coffee maker. Still moving? I don't think so. Because of the introduction. Because I may have misunderstood the arrangement. What arrangement? My life. That sounds larger than an apartment. It feels larger. She sat at the table and studied the circled floor plan. Tiny balcony. Claire says it's enough for 2 chairs. 2 hostile chairs. I brought our mugs over. Anita did not tell me I was right. That was why I trusted her. She asked how long I had wanted to move, what I had hoped would change, and whether I was prepared to stay in a house where one person used 6 rooms. I use 4. You pass through 4. I have hobbies. You alphabetized your spices last month. They were becoming arrogant. She sipped her coffee. If you stay, stay because you want this life. Don't stay so Claire can feel you not moving. I'm not trying to make her feel anything. Then you're the first mother in human history. I looked down at the brochure. The truth was ugly in both directions. Part of me wanted Claire to enter the apartment she had helped choose and see it empty. I wanted her to pass the balcony and remember promising coffee whenever we wanted. I wanted the absence to speak so clearly that I would never again have to explain what her words had done. That was punishment, whether I called it a boundary or not. But another part of me felt something close to relief. The house was too large. The gutters needed replacing. In winter, I carried laundry from the basement 1 step at a time because my right knee disliked ambition. Still, it was mine. My music group met 12 minutes away. Anita watched my lights. The woman at the pharmacy knew I hated child-proof caps and gave me ordinary ones without making a speech about safety. Frank's handwriting remained on the wall behind the furnace where he had recorded filter changes until 2001. I had been preparing to surrender all of it for a balcony with 2 hostile chairs. The doorbell rang at 10 the next morning. I knew it was Claire before I opened the door. She stood on the porch with 2 cardboard drink carriers, a white bakery box, and 3 rolls of packing tape looped around one wrist. I said we weren't packing today. You said you didn't want to pack. That doesn't mean we can't talk. You have tape. It was already in the car. All 3 rolls? They came in a package. She held out one of the coffees. Oat milk, 1 sugar. I drink regular milk. You told me dairy bothers your stomach. I said too much dairy bothers my stomach. A cup of coffee is not a wheel of cheese. She stared at me. I took the coffee. Thank you. Claire walked past me into the house. She was wearing jeans, a gray sweater, and no makeup. Without the formal dress and swept-back hair, she looked younger, but not in a comforting way. Her face was swollen around the eyes. "Where's Daniel?" I asked. "At home." "He didn't want to come?" "He said you told us not to." "I did." "Yes, Mom, I'm aware that Daniel is better at boundaries." She put the bakery box on the dining table and began gathering the flattened boxes by the stairs. I took them out of her hands. "Stop! I'm not packing. I'm moving these out of the hallway." "Where? Into the dining room? That would be moving them." She dropped her arms. "What are we doing?" "Talking, apparently." "Fine." She sat in Frank's chair at the head of the table, then seemed to realize where she was and moved to the chair beside it. I opened the bakery box. 2 almond croissants, 1 blueberry scone, and a lemon tart stared back at me like wealthy breakfast. "I got the tart for you," she said. "I know. You always get lemon. I know that too." She wrapped both hands around her coffee. The award dinner had left faint half-moons beneath her eyes. I wanted to reach over and smooth the hair caught in the collar of her sweater. I kept my hand on the table. "Are you really canceling the apartment?" she asked. "I'm calling tomorrow." "To ask what?" "What I lose if I withdraw. The application fee." "I know about the fee." "Then you've decided." "I've decided not to pretend nothing changed, because I introduced you badly, because you meant what you said more than you want to admit." Her jaw tightened. "You don't know what I meant." "Then tell me." I was under pressure. "You've said that." I had spent the whole night being introduced as Frank Mercer's daughter. I blinked. "Your father wasn't mentioned once." "Not that Frank Delaney, the committee chair. He kept saying he was proud of me like he discovered me. I'm sorry, that isn't the point. All night, people were defining me by who had opened a door, who had recommended me, who had put me on a project. Then Judith walked up and asked who you were, and I just couldn't bear one more person getting credit." She looked down at her cup. "I wanted one thing to belong to me. I'm not a line on your resume, Claire." "I know." "Do you?" She looked up. Anger was there, but something rawer sat behind it. "When I tell people you're my mother," she said, "you don't just let me be your daughter." I felt the room change. What does that mean? It means 5 minutes later, they know you raised me after Dad died. They know you worked extra shifts. They know I was the first Mercer to finish college. They know about the tuna sandwiches and the pearl earrings and every other thing you turned into proof. I sat back. She had noticed the sandwiches. Of all the things she could have said, that was what hurt. "I was proud of you, I know. But sometimes your pride feels like a hand around the back of my neck." The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe knocked twice. Claire picked at the cardboard sleeve on her coffee. "I should have called you my mother," she said. "I'm sorry I didn't." It was the first apology she had offered without wrapping it in an excuse. I wanted to take it. I wanted to let the whole matter collapse into a badly chosen sentence and a lemon tart. Then she added, "But you don't get to blow up the move because I finally said something you didn't like. I closed the bakery box. You think that's what this is? I think you want me scared enough to prove how much I need you." Her words were quiet, almost careful. I stood and carried my untouched coffee to the sink. "Please leave the key on the table when you go." Claire's face emptied. "The house key? You let yourself in yesterday morning after I told you not to come. I rang the bell. And if I hadn't answered? She looked toward the hall where her key ring lay beside the cardboard boxes. You gave me that key 20 years ago. I know. This is punishment. Maybe, I said, because Anita's voice was still in my head. Or maybe it's the first thing that actually belongs to me. Claire stared at me as if I had asked for one of her kidneys. You want my key. I want you to knock. I did knock. You came prepared to let yourself in. Because you don't always hear the bell upstairs. I heard it. That isn't the point. I almost smiled. The phrase had traveled between us so many times, it should have had its own suitcase. Claire went into the hall. She picked up her keys and stood with her back to me, working the brass house key off the ring. Frank had given it to her when she left for college. He had tied a red ribbon through the top so she could tell it from the dorm key, and although the ribbon disappeared years ago, the small groove it wore into the brass remained. She returned and placed it on the dining table. Not through, placed. You always said this was my home, she said. It is my home. You're welcome in it. When invited. That's generally how welcome works. She flinched. I hated that I had said it as soon as I heard it. Not because it was untrue, but because I had sharpened it before handing it to her. Claire picked up her purse. The coffee's getting cold, I said. I don't want it. You drove 2 hours. I'm aware. At least, eat something. She laughed once, without humor. You really can't help yourself. Apparently not. She walked to the front door. I followed because no matter how angry you were, you did not let someone drive 2 hours without asking whether she needed the bathroom. At the door, she turned. Are you going to call me after you talk to the apartment office? Yes. Even if you cancel? Yes. Don't make Daniel tell me. I won't. She pressed her lips together. Fine. Drive carefully. Don't. Don't what? Do the mother things after asking for the key back. She opened the door. I watched her walk to the car without saying another word. The key remained on the dining table beside the bakery box. I carried both coffees to the sink, then returned for the pastries. I put the croissants in a plastic container and the lemon tart in the refrigerator because Hurt did not make pastry less expensive. On Monday morning, I called the apartment office at 9:12. The woman who answered was named Evelyn. We'd met twice. She wore purple glasses and had called the narrow balcony an outdoor living opportunity. Mrs. Mercer, she said, I was just looking at your file. That seemed unlikely, but I appreciated the effort. I need to withdraw my application. There was a pause filled with typing. Did something happen with the unit? No. We can discuss the paint color if that's still a concern. The paint color is fine. Claire hated the paint color. She said beige made every room look pre-disappointed. May I ask why you're withdrawing? I've decided not to move to the city. More typing. You were approved. I know. The unit is being held until 5 today. I know that too. Evelyn explained that the application fee was non-refundable. She explained it twice, as if the second explanation might reveal a hidden generosity in the word non-refundable. I told her I understood. We hate to lose you, she said. You never had me. The words came out more bitterly than Evelyn deserved. I'm sorry, I said. That wasn't about you. I've worked in leasing for 16 years, Mrs. Mercer. Almost nothing is about me. She sounded like a woman Anita would like. When the call ended, I sat at the kitchen table with Claire's key in front of me. Then I sent the message I had promised. I withdrew the application. They're releasing the apartment. The reply came 3 minutes later. Understood. Claire used understood when she understood nothing, but intended to punish you for making her say so. I waited for more. None came. The house had been filling with boxes for months, but I had never noticed how much noise they made until I decided to stay. Every room seemed to contain one cardboard mouth hanging open. I began in the dining room. The first box held serving platters wrapped in newspaper. Claire had labeled it occasional kitchen, a category I had objected to on philosophical grounds. A kitchen is either there or it isn't, I had said. You don't use these every day. I don't use the fire extinguisher every day. That's not serving ware, not with that attitude. Now I lifted out the blue platter my mother gave me and returned it to the bottom drawer of the china cabinet. Its old place had already developed a clean rectangle in the dust. By noon, I had unpacked 4 boxes and discovered that staying required almost as much effort as leaving. Nothing returned to its former place naturally. I had to decide again whether I wanted it. That was how Anita found me, sitting on the dining room floor with 6 crystal wine glasses and no memory of the last time I had served wine in anything that required hand washing. She stood in the doorway carrying the pruning shears. "I finished your branch," she said. "You trespassed. You were busy communing with glassware." She picked up one of the glasses. "Keep or donate. Frank's mother gave us those." Frank's mother died in 1998. She still had strong opinions. "Are you afraid she'll return?" "I'm considering all possibilities." Anita sat across from me, cross-legged with some difficulty. "I have rehearsal tonight," she said. "You're in a play?" "I run hems through a sewing machine while actors ask if I can make their pants more emotional." I knew she helped at the Kenton Players, a community theater in a converted feed store. Before Malcolm became ill, she had tried several times to recruit me. "We need another pair of hands," she said. "The woman doing costumes has tendinitis, contempt for zippers, and a boyfriend in Toledo. I'm unpacking." "At night?" "I could. You could also come with me. I don't want to join a theater. Nobody wants you to join. I want you to keep a grown man from splitting his trousers during a drawing room comedy. That does sound socially important. 7 o'clock. I haven't sewn seriously in years. You repaired my curtains, they're crooked. So is the stage." I placed the wine glass in the donation box. "I'll think about it." "No, you'll come or you won't. Thinking is what you do before refusing." The phone rang before I could answer. Daniel. He had not called since the night of the award. I held up one finger to Anita, who immediately leaned closer. "Hello?" "Hi, Ruth. Is this a bad time?" "Anita is forcing me into community theater. I'm inviting her," Anita called. "Force has paperwork." Daniel laughed, then stopped, as if he had remembered the circumstances. "I wanted to check on you. I'm unpacking." "So Claire told me." "She told you I canceled?" "She told me you withdrew your application. That is what canceled means." Another pause. Daniel's pauses had become less effective now that I knew they were coming. "I'm trying not to get in the middle," he said. "You called from the middle." "I know." Anita pointed toward the coffee maker. I nodded. She got up and began making coffee in my kitchen without asking, a behavior I found comforting in her and intolerable in Claire. The contradiction did not escape me. "How is she?" I asked. "Angry." I assumed. "Also hurt?" "I assume that too." "She thinks you made the decision quickly. I've been making the other decision for a year. That's what I told her." I looked toward Anita. She had stopped measuring coffee and was listening openly. "You told her that?" I said maybe canceling wasn't as sudden as it felt. And what did she say? That I was taking your side. "Are you?" "I don't think there should be sides. That is the official slogan of people who don't want to be assigned one." He sighed. "Can I tell you something without having it repeated in a future argument?" "No." A reluctant laugh came through the phone. "Fair enough. Claire has been planning around your move more than she admitted." "I know. I don't mean errands." "What do you mean?" "She wanted you close." I picked at a loose edge on the donation box. Then she has an odd way of showing it. She talked about Tuesday dinners. She found a walking path she thought you'd like. She asked the building manager whether they could add another rail in your shower. I don't need another rail, I know. I told her that. She likes rails. She likes solving things. That sounded enough like Claire that my anger shifted and made room for something worse. Missing her. Daniel continued. "I'm not excusing what she said. It sounds like you're circling it." I heard her. It was awful. Anita set a mug beside me and raised her eyebrows. "Thank you," I said. "For the coffee?" Daniel asked. "No." He went quiet. "She loves you," he said. You tried that Friday. I mean, she doesn't know what to do with how much she loves you. That sounds like a problem she and her therapist should enjoy. She stopped seeing her therapist. Of course she did. Was the therapist insufficiently impressed? This time Daniel laughed properly. I felt disloyal for making him laugh, as if humor itself had chosen a side. I should go, he said. I just wanted you to know the move mattered to her for reasons other than convenience. I appreciate that. She'll come around. I'm not waiting for her to come around. The moment I said it, I knew I was lying. Daniel probably knew too. After we hung up, Anita handed me my coat. What's this? A portable boundary. I said I'd think about the theater, and you did. I watched your face. It said, no, I have boxes. You've had boxes all morning, and they're terrible company. The Kenton Players building smelled like sawdust, dust, and the particular sweat of adults pretending not to be nervous. A hand-painted sign in the lobby advertised the importance of being earnest, although someone had taped a card beneath it that said, earnestly underfunded. Anita led me backstage. 3 men stood in various stages of formal clothing. One wore a velvet jacket over a bowling shirt. Another was holding a pair of trousers together at the seat. Ruth, Anita said, meet our crisis. The man with the trousers turned carefully. How are you with invisible mending? I'm very good at visible judgment. He smiled. We need that too. For 2 hours, I pinned hems, moved buttons, and argued with a woman named Celia about whether a green sash made an actress look ill. Nobody asked about Claire. Nobody knew I had almost moved. When I threaded a needle without my glasses, the man with the torn trousers applauded once, then apologized because Anita threatened him with a pincushion. I laughed more than I expected. Driving home, I felt guilty about it. The guilt worsened when I saw Claire's name on my phone. She had sent the message 40 minutes earlier. Are you still doing spring dinner next Sunday? Marjorie needs to know what she's bringing. I read it twice at a red light. Not, how are you? Not, can we talk? The dinner had been held at my house every spring since Claire married Daniel. I cooked for 2 days. Claire arrived with flowers, Marjorie brought a salad nobody ate, and Daniel carved whatever required carving. At home, I hung my coat and stood in the hall beside the diminished stack of boxes. Then I wrote back, I'm not hosting this year, but I'd be happy to come if you want to have it. The phone rang before I reached the kitchen. You're canceling dinner too? Claire asked. I'm not canceling it. You're the one who hosts. You can host. I have 60-hour weeks right now. Then perhaps there won't be a dinner. She made a sound of disbelief. Are you planning to remove yourself from every part of my life? I looked at the brass key still lying on the table. No, I said. I'm trying to find out which parts were actually mine. What does that mean? Claire asked. It means I'm not sure being your mother has to include roasting meat for 8 people, while everyone else drinks wine in the living room. You like spring dinner. I do. So now you're giving up things you like to make a point? I'm giving up doing them automatically. Those sound exactly the same from where I'm standing. Then stand somewhere else. The words came out before I could soften them. Claire went silent. In the background, I heard the television and Daniel asking her something. She covered the phone and answered him, but I could not make out the words. When she came back, she said, We'll host. I sat down at the kitchen table. You don't have to. You just said you'd come if we hosted. I will. Fine. We'll do it here. Claire. What? You sound like you're arranging a hostage exchange. How am I supposed to sound? Maybe don't ask me that. We've established I'm not good at it. She breathed out, almost a laugh, then caught herself. Sunday at 4, she said. Can you bring the potatoes? I looked at the ceiling. What? You asked me to bring the part that takes 2 hours. They don't take 2 hours. Then you can make them. I don't know which recipe you use. It's potatoes, cream, garlic, and more butter than your father ever knew about. Mom. I'll bring wine. Marjorie brings wine. Then we'll have 2 wines. The Republic will survive. She hung up without saying goodbye. I left the key on the table for another day, then moved it to the drawer where Frank had kept spare batteries, rubber bands, and keys that opened nothing anybody could remember. It disappeared beneath a red plastic flashlight and a packet of picture hooks. By Thursday, my dining room looked like a warehouse that had lost confidence. Half the boxes were empty, one was marked "Donate," and 3 contained objects I could neither justify nor release. Among them was a ceramic turkey Claire made in an art class when she was young. Its beak pointed sideways, and one eye had been painted on its neck. Anita held it up. "This is upsetting. It's a turkey. It knows too much. Put it in the cabinet. You're keeping it." Apparently, she placed it beside my mother's blue platter, where it looked no more reasonable. The theater had found fresh uses for me. A zipper needed replacing. A hem had been measured while the actor was wearing shoes with a different heel. Celia, who was officially in charge of costumes, had decided I was steady under fabric pressure and gave me a ring of keys to the supply closet. I tried to refuse. "I've been here twice. Anita says you're reliable. Anita lies when organizing labor. Then prove her wrong." Celia was 72, narrow as a bookmark, and wore red glasses on a beaded chain. She had been a high school principal before retiring and still asked questions that sounded like detention. I took the keys. The work was ordinary enough to quiet my mind. Fabric did not care if you were acknowledged. A seam either held or it did not. When something pulled crooked, you removed the stitches and tried again without calling it betrayal. At home, my phone remained silent. Claire and I had never gone 4 days without speaking unless one of us was traveling. Even then, she sent pictures of meals and buildings. She'd once texted me 17 photographs of door handles from Copenhagen because she said I was the only person who would understand why they mattered. I had not understood, but I responded to each one. On Friday morning, Marjorie called. "I'm told we're dining in the city Sunday," she said. "So am I. Daniel says Claire is cooking. That's ambitious." I asked what I should bring, and she said nothing. "That's dangerous." Marjorie lowered her voice. "Should I bring a salad? You always bring a salad." "I know, but she said not to." "Then don't. What if there's no vegetable?" "We'll survive one evening. You don't know Harold's digestion." Harold was Daniel's father, a retired dentist who spoke little but treated every meal as a negotiation between pleasure and fiber. "Bring the salad," I said. "I knew you'd be sensible. Don't tell Claire I authorized it." There was a pause. "Is everything all right between you two?" The question was gentle, which made me suspicious. "Why?" "Daniel said you decided not to move." "I did." He didn't explain. "That's because it's not his story." "I suppose not." Marjorie had been married for 45 years and believed every family problem could be improved by using the correct serving bowl. I waited for advice. Instead, she said, "I was looking forward to having you nearby." The simple honesty embarrassed me. I was looking forward to being nearby. Then why? I changed my mind. "All right." She said it without demanding that I unpack the sentence. "We could still have lunch sometimes," she added. "Halfway. There's that place in Wexler with the terrible carpet. The soup is good. The carpet is a hate crime." I laughed. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen holding the phone. It had not occurred to me that staying would change more than my relationship with Claire. Marjorie and I were not close exactly, but we had spent years sitting beside each other at occasions our spouses wished would end sooner. She brought me hyacinths every Easter. I mailed Harold licorice on his birthday because Daniel said it was the only gift he did not return. A life was made of people you did not think to count until distance did the counting for you. Sunday afternoon, I dressed in navy slacks and a cream sweater Claire once said made me look expensive. I brought a bottle of red wine and no potatoes. Claire and Daniel lived in a renovated row house with black framed windows and a front door so tall it made every visitor look guilty. Claire had designed the interior herself. Nothing matched, yet everything belonged. An old factory cart served as a coffee table. The dining room light looked like a cluster of glass bubbles floating above the table. I had always loved the house. though there was nowhere comfortable to put a tissue box. Daniel opened the door. He hugged me harder than usual. "You brought wine." I was assigned wine. "You assigned yourself wine. Your wife spreads information quickly." His smile faded at the edges. "She's in the kitchen." Marjorie and Harold were already there. Marjorie had brought the salad in a wooden bowl and covered it with a dish towel as if hiding a body. "I tried," she whispered. Harold kissed my cheek. "No potatoes?" Apparently we're learning resilience. From the kitchen came a metallic crash, followed by Claire saying a word she had learned from Frank. I set down my wine and went to the doorway. Claire stood in front of the stove wearing an apron over black pants and a white blouse. A roasting pan was on the floor. Fortunately, it was empty. "Everything all right?" I asked. "It slipped. I can see that. The chicken is still on the counter. I'm glad." She looked at me, then at my empty hands. "You didn't bring the potatoes." "I said I was bringing wine. I thought you were joking." That's becoming a theme. Daniel entered behind me carrying the bottle. "What can I do?" "Open that," Claire said, "and check the chicken." "I don't know how to check a chicken." "Put a thermometer in it." "Where?" Claire closed her eyes. I knew exactly where the thermometer was because I had organized the kitchen drawers after their renovation. I also knew the chicken had been tied poorly, the sauce on the stove was separating, and the table had not been set. Every nerve in my body urged me to take over. I could fix the sauce with a spoonful of warm water. I could retie the chicken, set the table, find the serving dishes, and have everyone eating by 5. Claire would become pleasant again. Daniel would stop opening drawers at random. Marjorie could bring out her secret salad, and Harold's digestion would be protected. I remained in the doorway. Claire looked at me. I looked back. Finally, she said, "Would you help me?" Not, "You know where everything is." Not, would you help me?" "Yes," I said. "What do you want me to do?" Her mouth tightened at the formality, but she answered, "The sauce." I took off my watch, washed my hands, and went to the stove. We worked side by side without touching. I repaired the sauce. Claire found a bag of small potatoes and cut them in half. When she reached for the garlic, I moved aside instead of taking the knife from her. "You're cutting those too large," I said. She put the knife down. "Sorry," I said. She picked it up again. "No, you're right." I still didn't need to say it. "You were thinking it very loudly." We nearly smiled. Then Marjorie entered carrying the salad bowl. "I know you said not to, but Harold—" "I'm sure it's fine," Claire said. Marjorie stopped. Claire had not shouted, but the air changed anyway. "I can leave it in the car," Marjorie offered. "That would be ridiculous," Daniel said. "Put it on the table," I told her. Claire glanced at me. It was such a small thing telling someone where to place a salad in my daughter's house, but I felt myself cross a line we were both watching. "I'll handle the table," Claire said. Marjorie retreated with her bowl. For the next 20 minutes, Claire refused help she plainly needed. Daniel carried utensils in the wrong order. Harold opened the wine and drank half a glass alone in the dining room. I sat beside Marjorie on the sofa while smoke began drifting from the kitchen. "Should we say something?" she whispered. "It's her dinner. Something's burning. It's her fire." The smoke alarm sounded. Daniel waved a dish towel beneath it while Claire pulled the potatoes from the oven. Their edges were black, but the centers resisted a fork. "I can make rice," I said. "We're having potatoes. Those potatoes have moved beyond us. They're fine." Harold appeared in the doorway. "Are we evacuating?" "No," 4 of us said. "We ate at 5:40. The chicken was dry, the sauce was excellent, Marjorie's salad disappeared, and the potatoes required strong teeth." Nobody complained. Claire sat at one end of the table, Daniel at the other. I sat between Harold and Marjorie, in the place a guest would sit. Conversation moved carefully. Harold discussed property taxes. Marjorie praised the chicken with such determination that Claire asked her to stop. Daniel told a story about a man at work who brought his own office chair to mediation because he did not trust neutral furniture. Then Marjorie asked when I planned to put my house on the market. Claire set down her fork. "I'm not selling," I said. "Oh." Marjorie looked from me to Claire. "Daniel only said the apartment fell through." "It didn't fall through," I said. I withdrew. Claire's face reddened. "Does everybody need the details?" "No," I said. "But they don't need a substitute story either. I was trying to keep this dinner pleasant." Harold continued chewing. Marjorie looked deeply interested in her salad. Claire pushed her chair back. "You know what?" she said. "I did this. I hosted. I cooked. I asked for help exactly the way you wanted. And you still found a way to correct me in front of everyone. I corrected what you told them. I told them the apartment fell through because the truth is humiliating. For you, for all of us." Daniel said her name quietly. She turned on him. "Don't." I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. "Thank you for dinner," I said. Claire laughed. "Of course." "Leave." "That's your new thing." I stood. She stared at me with tears shining in her eyes. For a moment, I saw the frightened child she had once been, and then I hated myself for seeing her that way. Claire was a grown woman asking to be treated as one, even when it made leaving harder. "I'm not walking out to teach you anything," I said. "I'm leaving because I don't want us to say the next thing in front of everybody." Her face softened, but only for a second. "What if I need to say it?" "Then call me when it belongs to you," I said. "Not when you need an audience to make me wrong." Claire's mouth opened, but Daniel pushed his chair back. "I'll walk you out," he said. "You don't have to." "I know." That made Claire look at him. Marjorie rose too, clutching her napkin. "Ruth, you haven't had dessert." "There's dessert?" Harold asked. "No," Claire said. Marjorie sat down. I collected my purse from the living room. Daniel followed me to the entryway and handed me my coat. "You shouldn't drive upset," he said. "I drove here irritated. This is only a slight change in temperature. I'm serious, so am I." He held my coat open. I put my arms into it, and for one awkward moment he adjusted the collar the way Frank used to. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "The dinner." The sauce was good. He gave me a tired look. "She tried." "I know. She has spent all week convinced that if she did everything correctly tonight, you'd change your mind. Nobody told me that was the prize. She didn't want you to know. Then I'm not sure how I was supposed to win it." He opened the front door. The evening air had turned cold, and the streetlights shone on a row of cars wet with mist. Behind us, Claire began stacking plates. They struck each other harder than necessary. Daniel lowered his voice. "She thinks you're happier without her." That was quick. "She saw the theater keys on your key ring." I looked down. Celia's supply closet keys hung beside my car key, marked with a square of red tape. She noticed those. She notices everything when she's pretending not to. I went to help with costumes. I didn't join a traveling circus. I know. Am I supposed to sit in my house looking wounded until she feels secure? No. But if I laugh somewhere she isn't, I'm punishing her. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Apparently we communicate through atmosphere now. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "You two are exhausting. Imagine being one of us." That made him smile despite himself. He hugged me before I stepped outside. This time the hug was gentler. "I'll call when I'm home," I said. "You don't have to. I know." The drive back felt longer than 2 hours. My anger lasted until the first toll booth. After that came embarrassment, then doubt, then a detailed mental reconstruction in which I said every sentence differently, and the evening ended with coffee instead of a smoke alarm. I had corrected Claire in front of everyone. It did not matter that she had replaced the truth. I could have waited. I could have asked her privately why she told Marjorie and Harold the apartment had fallen through, as though faulty plumbing or a bad inspection had intervened. Instead, I had made sure the room understood my version. The habit was so familiar I had mistaken it for honesty. At a red light outside Wexler, I called Anita through the car speaker. "If you drove into a ditch, I'm not dressed for rescue," she answered. "I haven't driven into a ditch. Then this is social. How was dinner? The potatoes were burned. How badly? Harold could have used one to repair a driveway. And Claire." also burned. I told her enough to explain what had happened, though I presented myself better than I deserved. Anita listened until I reached the part about correcting the apartment story. "You're making that noise," she said. "What noise?" "The one you make when you know you were partly wrong but would like me to reduce the fraction." Claire lied. She simplified. She lied simply, and you corrected her at the table. "Yes. You could both be unpleasant, there's no limit. That isn't helpful. I've never promised helpful. Helpful people end up driving 2 hours with potatoes. I didn't bring potatoes. Growth." When I reached home, Daniel had already texted, "Let us know you're safe." The use of us felt optimistic. I wrote, "Home." Claire did not answer. Marjorie called the next morning before 9. "I hope I didn't cause that," she said without saying hello. "You asked a reasonable question. I could have discussed the weather. You discussed the weather for 40 minutes before dinner. Not enough, apparently." I sat at the kitchen table with coffee and the lemon tart I had finally decided qualified as breakfast. "I'm sorry you were uncomfortable," I said. I was more worried than uncomfortable. Though Harold ate a potato to be polite and was awake until 2, he didn't have to eat it. You know Harold. He treats food left on a plate as a moral failure. She hesitated. "Claire said some things after you left. I don't want to know. I wasn't going to repeat them." "Good. I was going to tell you she was crying." I set down my fork. "Marjorie, I thought you should know. I know she's hurt. She said you've been looking for an excuse not to move. That isn't true. I didn't say it was." "But you want me to defend myself." "No. I want someone to tell me what to do next Sunday. There is no dinner next Sunday, but there's always." She stopped herself. The silence that followed was almost funny. "I suppose I could invite you and Harold here sometime," she said. "I'd like that. I could make chicken. Maybe practice first." She laughed, then apologized for laughing, which made both of us laugh harder. Afterward, I put the rest of the tart back in the refrigerator. My house seemed very quiet. The theater was not quiet. When I arrived that afternoon, a man was singing scales in the hallway, a vacuum cleaner was running on stage, and Celia was arguing with a steamer that had begun spitting rust-colored water. "I brought replacements," I said. "For the steamer? For the garment bags." The costume rack was covered with thin plastic bags from a dry cleaner. 2 had torn and several costumes hung unprotected. I had driven to a fabric store that morning and bought 6 zippered garment covers. Celia looked at them. "Why?" "Because the ones you have are falling apart. We have labels on those." I moved the labels. "You moved them where?" "To the new bags." She turned off the steamer. Behind her, Anita appeared carrying a box of hats. The expression on her face said she had just spotted weather. "I also sorted the repair basket," I continued. "Buttons in one tray, hooks in another, thread by color." Celia's lips pressed together. It was sorted. It was a mixing bowl full of metal. We knew where everything was. You knew everything was in the bowl. Yes, that's not a system. It was our system. A man in striped socks approached, saw Celia's face, and reversed direction without speaking. I placed the garment bags on the cutting table. I was trying to help. I know. The words were polite. They still stung. Celia folded her arms. "You're very good with a needle, Ruth. You're quick, and the actors like you. That sounds like a dismissal." "It isn't. It's a request." "For what?" "Ask before you reorganize my room." Heat moved up my neck. "I didn't reorganize the room. You reorganized the things in it. They needed it. According to you." Anita set down the hats and became interested in a feather. Celia picked up one of the new garment bags. "These are better," she said. "We'll use them." "But I don't need you to rescue us." "I wasn't rescuing anyone." "Good. Then we understand each other." She carried the bags to the costume rack. I stood at the table looking at the newly divided repair trays I had brought from home. Anita waited until Celia was out of earshot. "You okay?" "Perfectly. You look like someone returned your casserole dish dirty. I spent $63. And now the costumes have nice bags. You agree with her. I agree that you walked in and improved something without asking. It was chaos. So is my garage. Stay out. I gathered the empty shopping bag and folded it into a square sharper than necessary. She could have said thank you. She did, in Celia language. That language is rude. So is yours sometimes. I looked at her. Anita removed the fisherman cap she had worn despite being indoors. Her uneven hair stood up on one side. Do you want me to lie? No. Yes, you do. I sat in the chair beside the sewing machine. For years, Claire had told me she did not need help, and I had learned to hear it as embarrassment. When I replaced the worn towels in her first apartment, she said I should not have spent the money. When I filled her freezer after Andrew left, she said there was no room. When I reorganized her pantry after the row house renovation, she stood in the doorway holding a jar of cumin and asked why nothing was where she had put it. I had believed every objection was pride covering gratitude. Maybe some had simply been objections. I don't know what to do if I'm not fixing something, I said. Anita pulled out the chair beside me. Drink? It's 4 p.m. Theater people don't believe in clocks. I have to drive. Coffee then. I don't need coffee. She raised one eyebrow. Was that a boundary? It was. Very healthy. You look miserable. I laughed unwillingly. Celia returned with a torn lace cuff and placed it in front of me. Can you mend this without replacing the whole sleeve? Yes. Would you? The question was deliberate. I looked at her. She looked back. Yes, I said, I would. At home that evening, I unpacked the last bedroom box. Beneath 2 folded blankets, I found the small wooden level Frank had kept in his workshop. Claire had slipped it into the box weeks earlier. Dad would want you to have something of his in the new place, she had said. The level was scarred, its yellow bubble cloudy with age. I carried it to the garage. Frank's workshop occupied the back half, separated from the car by a wall he had built himself. His tools still hung above the workbench in dark outlines. Coffee cans full of nails lined the shelf. 24 years after his death, the room remained almost exactly as he left it, because Claire and I had never agreed on how to touch it. The move had finally given us a reason. We were supposed to clear the workshop during the last weekend before I left. I stood in the doorway and understood that canceling the move had not canceled the room. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. I took a picture of the level on the workbench, then sent it to Claire. I'm going through Dad's workshop Saturday. Tell me if there's anything you want me to set aside. Her answer came before I reached the kitchen. Don't start without me. A minute later, another message appeared. I'll be there at 10. I'll knock. I read the second message twice. Then I wrote, Thank you. At 9:58 Saturday morning, a car door closed outside. At 10, the bell rang. I opened the door to find Claire carrying 2 coffees and wearing old jeans, boots, and Frank's canvas work jacket. The sleeves were rolled twice. She had claimed it after he died, and for years I had assumed it was hanging in her closet untouched. You kept that, I said. She looked down at the jacket. Of course I kept it. I didn't know. You never asked. We both heard the extra meaning. I stepped aside. Come in. I brought regular milk. She handed me one of the cups. Thank you. I almost bought oat out of spite. That would have been expensive spite. I decided you'd enjoy complaining too much. She stood in the hall without removing the jacket. Do you want breakfast? I asked. I ate. You drove 2 hours. I still understand breakfast. I nodded. The workshop's open. We went through the kitchen and into the garage. I had raised the blinds over Frank's workbench, and the morning light exposed every dust-covered surface. The wooden level lay where I had placed it. Claire touched it with one finger, then pulled her hand away. You moved it, she said. I found it in my bedroom box. I packed it for you. I remember. She looked around. Frank had arranged his tools with the concentration of a man who believed screwdrivers had moral character. Flatheads hung on the left, Phillips on the right. though he had labeled both rows because he did not trust me to respect the distinction. A brown work apron still hung from a nail beneath the clock. The clock had stopped at 6:17 sometime during the first winter after his death. Claire set her coffee on the workbench. "What's the plan?" "I thought we'd make 3 piles. Keep, donate, throw away. That's 2 piles in a disposal. It's still 3 locations." "Fine. I have boxes." "Of course you do." We began with the shelves closest to the door. Paintbrushes stiff with age went into the trash. A box of unopened sandpaper went to donate. Frank's collection of extension cords became a negotiation. "We need one," I said. "You have 4. "I have 4 because 3 don't work. Then you have 1 extension cord and 3 long pieces of garbage. You sound like your father. He would have kept all 4. He would have repaired them. No, he would have moved them onto a different shelf and called that repair." I laughed. Claire smiled down at the cord in her hands. For a few minutes, the room felt like it used to when the 3 of us were together and Frank was pretending irritation because we had disturbed his kingdom. Claire tied the working cord into a neat loop. "Keep," she said. "Agreed." We filled half a trash bag before either of us mentioned the dinner. It was Claire who did. Marjorie called me. I assumed she would. She thinks she caused everything by asking about the house. She didn't. I told her that. She called me too. Of course she did. She cares. She gathers information and then calls it caring. That can be both. Claire glanced at me. "You like her more now. I liked her before. You complained about her salad for 9 years. I complained about the same salad. That's different." She crouched beside a low cabinet and pulled out a red metal toolbox. When she opened it, a smell of oil and old wood rose between us. "Do you want this?" I asked. "I don't have tools. That would be a reason to want tools. Daniel has tools. Daniel owns a hammer with a bottle opener in the handle. It was a gift. It was a warning." She smiled again, but it faded quickly. "I didn't lie to them," she said. I sat on Frank's wooden stool. "You said the apartment fell through. I said it wasn't happening." Marjorie heard something different. "That doesn't mean I invented a plumbing disaster. You let her believe the decision was outside your control." "My control?" "Our control." Claire shut the toolbox. "Did you want me to tell them you canceled because I was ashamed to call you my mother? Were you? I've apologized." "That wasn't my question." "No, Mom. I am not ashamed that you're my mother, just embarrassed by the evidence." She stood. "Can we do this without you turning every sentence?" "I'm not turning them. You take whatever I say, rotate it until the sharpest side is facing me, and then act surprised when I bleed." I looked at the red toolbox between us. At the theater, Celia's repair basket had made perfect sense to the people who used it. I had walked in, decided their way was wrong, and rearranged everything before anyone could object. It was easier to see that habit in a bowl of buttons than in 20 years with my daughter. "I did that to someone this week," I said. Claire frowned. "What?" "At the theater. I organized the costume room without asking." "You organized an entire room?" "Part of a room." "What part?" "The useful part." Despite herself, she laughed. I told her about the garment bags, the repair trays, and Celia asking me not to rescue anyone. I did not present myself well this time. Claire leaned against the workbench, listening. When Celia said she didn't need me to fix it, I said, "I thought she was being rude." Then I realized I had heard the same thing from you 100 times. At least 100. Don't become greedy. Sorry. I'm not saying I understand all of it. Why not? Because replacing worn towels is not the same as denying someone in public. Claire looked away. "But," I continued, "I can see that sometimes I gave you things you didn't ask for and expected you to be grateful instead of annoyed." "Sometimes, Claire, a lot of times. I am trying." She pressed her lips together, then nodded. "All right, sometimes." We worked without speaking for several minutes. She found a coffee can filled with bent nails. I put it in the trash. She took it out. "Those were Dad's. They're bent. He saved them. Your father saved sour cream containers." Sentiment has limits. She turned the can in her hands. Keep them if you want, I said. What would I do with bent nails? Apparently, remember him. She placed the can in her keep pile. That was how grief worked in families. One person's trash became another person's evidence. Near noon, I opened the cabinet beneath the workbench. Inside were 2 stacks of old magazines, a broken vise, and a wooden birdhouse missing its roof. Claire took it from me. Oh my God, do you remember that? Dad said it was modern. You cried because no birds would live in it. No birds did live in it. They were conservative. She ran her thumb along the crooked opening. Frank had let her use the drill, and the hole sat too low and slightly to the left. He had refused to correct it. Keep? I asked. She hesitated, then placed it in my pile. For your yard. I already have birds. Now they can appreciate modern design. I set it on the shelf above the level. A strip of blue painter's tape on the back bore Claire's name in Frank's handwriting. The sight of it tightened something in my chest. Claire saw. You okay? Yes. That means no. I miss him. So do I. You don't talk about him. You talk enough for both of us. The tenderness disappeared so quickly I wondered if I had imagined it. What is that supposed to mean? She picked up her coffee, discovered it was empty, and crushed the cup slightly between her fingers. It means every time I remember Dad, I have to remember your version too. He was my husband and my father. I know that. Do you? I stood from the stool. Be careful. Why? Because you lost more? I didn't say that. You never had to. You were the widow. Everybody brought food and asked how you were sleeping. I was supposed to be strong because you had already taken the grieving position. The garage seemed to narrow around us. You were 19, I said. Nobody expected you to be strong. You did. I needed you. Exactly. She set the crushed cup down. I came home from college and spent 6 months making sure you ate. I answered the phone because you couldn't talk to people. I wrote thank you notes for flowers addressed to you. I was barely functioning. I know. I'm not blaming you for falling apart. It sounds like you are. I'm telling you that helping didn't only go one direction. The sentence struck so close to the award dinner that I had to look away. Someone who helped me when I was young. In my mind, I had reduced Claire's life to what I had given her. Perhaps she had reduced me in return because neither of us knew how to admit the debt ran both ways. That's what you meant at the dinner? I asked. No. Then what did you mean? I don't know. You keep saying that. Because I don't have a clean answer you can put in one of your stories. What stories? The ones where you work the extra shift and make the tuna sandwiches and keep everything going. You tell them like you never needed anything from me. I picked up the trash bag and tied it too tightly. You want me to say I was a burden. I want you to say I was there. You were. Her face changed. It was such a small answer. I should have given it years ago. Claire sat on the edge of the workbench. I remained standing because sitting beside her felt too much like forgiveness, and I did not yet know what I was forgiving or asking to be forgiven for. After a moment, she noticed a large cardboard carton on the highest shelf. Dust coated the top. Claire was written on one side in black marker. What's in that? Your old architecture things. I thought I threw those away. I saved some. Of course you did. She reached for the folding step stool. Leave it, I said. Why? We've done enough today. Her hand stopped on the stool. You invited me here, and now I'm tired. That box has my name on it. It will still have your name next time. The possibility of a next time settled between us. Claire looked toward the house. Can I use the bathroom? You don't need permission to use the bathroom. I don't have a key anymore. I'm learning the rules. There it was again, the little sharpened edge. I could have answered with one of my own. Instead, I said, "Second door on the left, in case you've forgotten." She walked into the house. I stood alone in Frank's workshop, looking at the box she had almost opened. Then I took the wooden level from the bench and placed it in Claire's keep pile beside the bent nails. When she returned, she noticed it immediately. "I packed that for you," she said. "I know. You should have it. I think you should." Neither of us touched it. At one, she put on Frank's jacket and carried the toolbox to her car. I walked with her but stayed on the porch. We didn't finish, she said. No. Do you want me to come back? Do you want to? She stared at the toolbox in her hands. I don't know. It was not the answer I wanted. For once, I let it be the answer she had. Claire put the toolbox in her trunk, closed it, and drove away without taking the level. I returned it to the workbench. For the next several days, we communicated in small, cautious messages. Claire sent a photograph of the toolbox on Daniel's kitchen island with the caption, "He says half these tools are obsolete." I wrote, "Daniel has a hammer that opens beer." She responded, "He would like you to stop telling people." I asked who people were. She did not answer. It was not peace, but it was contact. At the theater, opening night approached with the calm efficiency of a flood. A button vanished from a jacket every time I looked away. The man whose trousers I had mended, Walter, gained 4 pounds and blamed the fabric. "Wool doesn't shrink while you're wearing it," I told him. "You don't know my metabolism. I know your waistband." Celia made me responsible for checking costumes before each performance. This time she asked. I said yes without improving the system. The restraint nearly killed me. My dining room table became a temporary sewing station because the theater machines were older than most of the cast and made a noise like silverware in a garbage disposal. I brought home 2 dresses, a vest, and a velvet jacket whose lining had detached itself in protest. That was when I began looking at the small back bedroom differently. It had been Claire's room once. After she left, I kept it unchanged for years, down to the white wicker headboard she had begged for and then declared childish 6 months later. Eventually, I replaced the bed with a sleeper sofa and filled the closet with Christmas decorations, extra blankets, and boxes Claire stored whenever her life changed addresses. Now I could imagine my sewing table beneath the window. The light was good there, better than in the dining room. I could leave a project overnight without moving it before breakfast. But Claire's boxes occupied most of the closet and half the floor. I stood in the doorway for 10 minutes, rehearsing ways to ask her to collect them that would not sound like exile. Every version sounded like exile. Anita arrived through the back door without knocking, carrying soup in a jar. "You need curtains," I said. "You have curtains. For the back door. To discourage you." I'd assume they were decorative. She set the soup on the counter and followed me upstairs. "You're making this a sewing room," she said. "I'm considering it. You've put the table in your mind already. There's nowhere to put it in reality." She opened the closet. A stack of boxes leaned toward her. "What's all this?" "Claire's." "Every box?" "Most of them." One was labeled books, grad school. Another said winter clothes, although Claire had not worn anything in it for at least 7 winters. A smaller box contained dishes from her first marriage that she refused to use and refused to discard. "You could ask her to move them," Anita said. "That seems pointed. Everything seems pointed right now. I don't want her thinking I'm removing her from the house." "Are you?" "No." "Then tell her why you need the room." "I don't need it. I want it." Anita looked at me. That's allowed. The sentence irritated me, perhaps because I had been waiting for permission. I texted Claire that evening. "I'm turning the back bedroom into a sewing room. Can we make a plan for your stored boxes?" Her reply took an hour. "Sure." Then 5 minutes later, "Where do you want me to put them?" I wrote, "Wherever you keep things you don't use." She called immediately. "You mean storage?" "I mean wherever makes sense. There is no room at our house. You have 3 bedrooms. One is Daniel's office. His desk is taking over the country. The other is a guest room. Store them there." "Then where do guests sleep? Perhaps they can sleep on the boxes." "Why are you being like this? I'm asking you to take your belongings. After 20 years. Yes, now." "I didn't say now. You said you're turning my room into a sewing room. It hasn't been your room since the first Bush administration. That's not the point." There it was again. I had begun to think our family crest should carry those words beneath a drawing of 2 women pointing in opposite directions. "I'm not throwing anything away," I said. Are you asking me because you need space or because you want to prove you're moving on? Both might be true. She went quiet. I sat at the dining table with Walter's velvet jacket spread in front of me. The lining was pinned neatly along one sleeve, and the other sleeve remained inside out. I need somewhere to work, I said, and I need to stop keeping half my house ready for people who don't live here. People. You could say me, you could have said mother. As soon as it left my mouth, I regretted it. Claire breathed out. We almost went 4 days, she said. I know. Do you have to bring it into everything? No, but you will. I'm sorry. She seemed surprised. I was surprised, too. I shouldn't have said that, I continued. It was cheap. All right. You can have time with the boxes. I'm not demanding them this week. How much time? 3 months. That sounds like a notice from a landlord. 6 months. That sounds like a generous landlord. Despite myself, I smiled. What do you want? I asked. A month. If you give me 6, I'll wait 5.5. That is true. I can come next Saturday. Daniel will help. All right. Do I need an invitation in writing? You just received one verbally. Very formal. Wear shoes appropriate for stairs. I'm hanging up now. This time she said goodbye. Claire and Daniel arrived the following Saturday in his car because it had more cargo space. She rang the bell. He stood behind her holding 2 cardboard trays of coffee and a paper bag from the bakery. Regular milk, he announced. I've become a campaign issue. You should hear the debates. The 3 of us went upstairs. Daniel took one look at the boxes and said, We're going to need storage. Claire glared at him. What? You said they'd fit. I said I hadn't measured. That is not what you said. It is exactly what I said, which is why you were annoyed. They argued like people who trusted the argument would end. I had always envied that about them. While Daniel carried the first boxes downstairs, Claire opened the closet and began reading labels. You kept my blue dishes. They're your blue dishes. I thought you donated them. You told me not to. That was after Andrew left. I wasn't making good decisions. You threatened to search the donation center. She lifted the lid. Inside, 6 chipped stoneware plates lay between yellowed sheets of newspaper. These are terrible. They always were. Why didn't you tell me? I did. You said they were cheerful. You were 23 and married to a man who served cereal at dinner. I was trying not to overwhelm you. She laughed, then sat on the floor. I lowered myself beside her. For an hour, we sorted. She donated 3 boxes of books, kept winter clothes she would never wear, and threw away a lamp with no cord. Daniel carried everything without offering an opinion after Claire threatened to store the blue dishes in his office. Near the bottom of the closet, she found a framed photograph face down beneath a folded quilt. It showed the 3 of us on my back steps. Claire was 20, Frank had been gone almost a year, and none of us looked ready to be photographed. My hand rested on Claire's shoulder. Her hand was over mine. I remember this, she said. Anita took it. You look terrible. So do you. Dad's sweatshirt. She touched the image. I was wearing the gray college sweatshirt I still slept in. You were living here then, I said. For 1 semester. You stayed longer. I went back in January. You came home every weekend to check on you. The phrase hung between us without accusation. I needed that, I said. Claire kept looking at the photograph. I know. No. I mean, I knew you were checking on me. I let you. You didn't have much choice. I could have told you to go live your life. You did. Then you called me at midnight because the furnace made a noise. I was afraid of the furnace. You were afraid of everything. I was. She leaned the picture against the wall instead of placing it in either pile. Daniel appeared at the doorway. Storage facility closes at 4. We're almost done, Claire said. You have 14 boxes. 13. The blue dishes are yours now. He looked at me. This is why I wanted a prenuptial agreement. You should have protected the office. He carried another box downstairs. Claire remained on the floor. Are you happy? She asked. Right now? Here, staying. I looked around the half-emptied room. I don't know yet. You seem busy. That's not the same thing. The theater. The theater is temporary. Daniel says you have keys. Daniel talks too much. She picked at a loose thread on the quilt. I thought you'd be miserable, she said, because I'm not moving. Because of us. I have been miserable. You don't look it. I understood then what she had seen in the theater keys. Not proof that I was replacing her. Proof that my pain could exist without remaining visible to her. I laugh sometimes, I said. Then I come home and check my phone. Claire nodded without looking up. The answer seemed to relieve and disappoint her in equal measure. I stood and opened the window. Dust shifted in the sunlight. The play opens next Friday, I said. She looked at me. Walter's trousers may not survive, but the rest should be respectable. Is that an invitation? Yes. To both of us. If Daniel promises not to bring his hammer, I can't promise anything for Daniel. You've been married 8 years. Start small. She smiled. We'll come. You don't have to. I know. After they left, the room looked larger, but lonelier. Claire had taken every box except the photograph, which still leaned against the wall. I carried it to the dining room, where the unfinished velvet jacket waited. For a moment, I considered putting the picture in a drawer. Instead, I set it beside the sewing machine. Then I threaded a needle and finished the sleeve under the gaze of the 3 people we had once been. Walter's trousers failed 23 minutes before curtain. He came into the costume room walking sideways, one hand pressed to the back of his waist. I was bending artistically, he said. You were warned against that. The scene requires urgency. The scene requires you to enter through a door. I enter urgently. I turned him around. The seam had opened 4 inches beneath the waistband, though my earlier repair remained intact. This is new damage. Does that matter? It matters to my pride. Anita handed me a threaded needle. Celia stood in the doorway wearing a headset and the expression of a woman who had reconsidered every choice since birth. Can he go on? She asked. He can go anywhere if he stops moving. I have to move, Walter said. Then go on in your underwear. Ruth, hold still. I stitched, while Walter leaned over the cutting table and recited his opening lines into a tin of buttons. Actors rushed past carrying gloves, hats, and 1 silver tray nobody could find until it was in everyone's way. I had not looked at the lobby since the doors opened. Claire texted at 7:10. We're here. Do we come backstage? I wrote, no. Then, worried it sounded unfriendly, I added, Walter's pants are open. Daniel responded from Claire's phone. Need my hammer? I put the phone face down. At 7:28, Celia ordered everyone to places. Walter tested his seam with a cautious squat. I told him if he did that again, I would staple him. The curtain rose at 7:30. Backstage, the first performance existed mostly as footsteps, whispers, and the muffled response of the audience. We could not see much from the wings, but we learned the shape of each scene by listening. Laughter arrived in waves. An actor missed an entrance and invented 3 lines about a train. A teacup broke off stage, although no teacup was supposed to leave the table. I stood beside the costume rack with a sewing kit in my hand and felt more nervous than I had at Claire's award dinner. Not because anyone would see my work, because they would not. If I had done it properly, every hem would stay unnoticed. Walter returned from his second scene sweating and triumphant. They laughed at my cucumber line. They laughed because you dropped the cucumber. Comedy has many fathers. Take off the jacket, your collar's turning. During intermission, I checked my phone. A message from Claire read, It's good. I wrote, I know. Then I erased it and sent, I'm glad. The second act moved faster. A button came loose. A hat rolled onto the stage, and Walter survived an urgent exit without exposing himself to the first 3 rows. When the final applause began, the actors gathered in the wings. Celia pushed Anita and me forward, but we stopped behind the curtain. I'm not going out there, I said. Neither am I, Anita said. They'll think we want assignments. The cast bowed. Walter pointed toward the wings, and the audience applauded again. I could not tell whether the applause was meant for us or the lighting crew or a cucumber that had shown unusual courage. It did not matter. After the audience began filing into the lobby, I helped collect costumes and inspected Walter's trousers. "You made it," I said. "So did they." "Barely. Like all great art." Celia came up behind me. "Good work tonight." "Thank you. You didn't reorganize anything." I suffered quietly. I noticed. She squeezed my shoulder and went to find the actor who had broken the teacup. I was hanging the last jacket when Claire appeared in the doorway. She carried a bouquet of white roses wrapped in brown paper. Daniel stood behind her, still wearing his work clothes. His tie loosened. "You're not supposed to be back here," I said. "The curtain's down," Claire said. "That doesn't make this a republic." Daniel looked at the costume rack. "Where are the open pants?" "Recovered," Walter called from behind a changing screen. Claire held out the flowers. "These are for you. I wasn't on stage." "I know." The roses were not identical like the ones at the hotel. One was barely open, two leaned sideways, and a few outer petals were bruised. They were much better. "Thank you," I said. Anita came in carrying a laundry basket full of gloves. "You made it," she said to Claire. "We said we would. People say all sorts of things." Claire looked at me. "Claire, this is Anita," I said. "You've met, but apparently neither of you trusts memory. And this is Celia." Celia returned at the sound of her name. "My daughter, Claire," I continued, "and her husband, Daniel." Claire's eyes moved to mine. No accomplishments, no buildings, no widowhood. Just the relationship. Celia shook their hands. "Your mother saved Walter's dignity." "Temporarily," I said. "She's very useful," Walter called. The word sat there. Claire heard it. So did I. Celia tilted her head toward the screen. "Walter, stop helping. I'm expressing gratitude. You're undressed." A burst of laughter relieved the room. Daniel inspected a military-style coat hanging on the rack. "Ruth did this?" "The alterations," Anita said. "She didn't invade a small country." "She could," Claire said. "She'd reorganize it first." I looked at her. She smiled carefully. "I decided to let it be funny." The cast was gathering at O'Malley's, a bar across from the theater. Walter invited everyone with the intensity of a man who believed opening night had been arranged primarily to justify beer. "We thought we'd take you to dinner," Claire said. "Tonight?" "Yes. I told Anita I'd go to O'Malley's." Claire's face shifted before she could stop it. "You can come," I added. "To the cast party. It's a bar with fried food. They're not checking theatrical credentials." Daniel looked at Claire. "I'm willing to lie about my experience." "You once played a tree," she said. "3rd grade. Very well reviewed." Claire glanced at the flowers in my arms, then toward the noisy hallway. "I'm tired." "You worked today," I said. "So did you." "Yes." The difference between us stood there, awkward and unnecessary. "We can do dinner another time," Daniel said. I almost offered to leave with them. The old instinct rose so quickly I had my purse halfway off the chair before I noticed. "I'm going to O'Malley's," I said. Claire nodded. "Of course." It was not an accusation, but she had chosen a tone that could carry one if needed. I kissed her cheek. "Thank you for coming. You invited us." "I know." Daniel hugged me. "Congratulations, I didn't win anything. Maybe that's why tonight felt nicer." Claire heard him. Her mouth tightened, but she said nothing. At O'Malley's, 12 adults crowded around 2 pushed-together tables. The menu stuck to my wrist. Walter ordered onion rings for everyone and told the story of his trousers 3 times, improving my heroism with each version. By the 3rd telling, I had apparently sewn him into the costume while he was delivering a monologue. Claire's flowers sat in an empty beer pitcher at the end of the table. I laughed. I ate fried pickles. I listened to Celia describe a production of South Pacific during which the stage flooded from a broken pipe. And several times, without meaning to, I checked my phone. No message from Claire. When I left after 11, Daniel was leaning against my car. I stopped beneath the parking lot light. "Have you been here all night?" "No. I drove Claire home and came back. Why? I wanted to talk. That sounds threatening. He pushed his hands into his coat pockets. I tried calling. My phone was in my purse. I know. I could see you checking it. The bar windows glowed behind him. Inside, Walter had begun demonstrating his urgent entrance to a waitress. Is Claire all right? She's angry with me. For coming back? For saying tonight was nicer. That was unnecessary. I know. Then why did you say it? Because I was angry at her. I unlocked my car but did not open the door. Daniel looked tired. Without Claire beside him, he seemed less polished, almost younger. I owe you an apology, he said. You already apologized for the dinner. Not for this. What is this? He nodded toward my car, the theater. Perhaps the 2 hours between his house and mine. When you were planning to move, I kept thinking about how much easier things would be. I waited. Deliveries, contractors, my parents visiting, Claire working late. I pictured you 10 minutes away and every problem had your name on it. That's honest. It's embarrassing. Those often travel together. I never asked what you'd be giving up because you seemed happy to give it. I was. I know. That made it convenient not to look closely. A car passed on the street, tires hissing on wet pavement. Claire wanted me there for more than errands, I said. Yes, you told me. But I benefited from the other part. And when she introduced you that way, I knew it was wrong. I also knew I had been treating you like someone who helped. His voice broke slightly on the last word. You didn't say it. I didn't have to. No, I thought. Sometimes things were present without being said. I appreciate the apology. He nodded but did not move. Is that all? No, of course not. He took a breath. Claire thinks you didn't invite her tonight because you wanted her to see that you have a new life. I did invite her. To the play. Not to the people. I invited her to the bar. After she arrived, she could have come. She felt like an addition. The words irritated me because they were so familiar. I spent years feeling like an addition to her life. I know. Does she? I think she's beginning to. Then why are you here explaining her to me? Daniel looked toward the bar. Because when she's hurt, she gets proud. When you're hurt, you get useful. Neither one of you knows how to walk into the other person's house empty-handed. I looked at the roses through my rear window. I had laid them across the back seat, still wrapped in brown paper. She brought flowers, I said. She spent 40 minutes choosing them. They're beautiful. She wanted you to ask her to stay. I wanted her to stay. Neither of you said it. I opened the car door. Did she send you back? No. She thinks I'm at home. Then go home. He nodded. Before he turned away, I said, Tell her I love the flowers. Tell her yourself. I drove home with the roses shifting softly on the back seat. At midnight, I put them in the blue pitcher Frank used to fill from the garden. Then I took a picture and sent it to Claire. They're beautiful. I wish you'd stayed. Her answer arrived while I was wiping water from the counter. I wish you'd asked. I stared at the words. Then I typed, You're right. The 3 dots appeared. I expected an apology, an accusation, or another thumbs up. Instead, she wrote, Can I come next weekend to finish Dad's workshop? I looked toward the dark doorway leading to the garage. Yes, I wrote, 10 o'clock. A moment later, I'll knock. Bring regular milk? I smiled despite myself. And the box with your name on it, I wrote. We'll open it this time. Claire arrived at 9:57 with 1 coffee, a carton of regular milk, and a box of donuts. I didn't know how much milk you wanted, she said, so you brought a quart. You're difficult to estimate. She rang the bell, waited for me to open the door, and did not mention the fact that she could once have let herself in. I took the milk. Where's your coffee? I had one in the car. You drank it? Yes. All of it? Almost. That's progress. I'm 43. Progress can be late. She followed me through the kitchen. The roses from opening night remained in the blue pitcher, though several had begun to bend at the neck. You kept them, she said. They're 4 days old. You throw flowers away before they die. I'm expanding my tolerance for decline." She touched one of the bruised petals. "Daniel told me he went back to the theater." I assumed. What did he say? That he had been planning uses for me. Claire's hand stopped. He shouldn't have said that. Because it wasn't true? Because it was between us? Was I part of us? She looked at me. "I'm not trying to start," I said. "I'm asking." "Yes, you were part of it." "Then I'm glad he told me." She turned away from the flowers. "I didn't make a list. I know. I never said, 'Ruth can handle this, Ruth can do that.' You didn't have to. I would have offered. That's what I told him. The old version of me would have heard vindication. The new version was not yet skilled, but she was trying." "That doesn't mean you had to accept every offer," I said. Claire looked surprised. "Celia is a very forceful woman. Maybe I should send her flowers." She'd put them in the prop room. We carried the donuts into the garage. The workshop looked more disturbed than it had after our first attempt. Empty spaces showed on the shelves. Pale outlines marked where tools had hung for decades. Frank's wooden level waited on the workbench between the birdhouse and the crushed coffee cup Claire had left behind. She picked up the cup. "You could have thrown this away. I thought it was sentimental." She gave me a look and dropped it into the trash. The box with her name still sat on the highest shelf. I unfolded the step stool and held it steady while Claire climbed. "I can get it," she said. "I know. You're gripping the stool. It's a supportive grip. It's making the stool shake." I removed my hand. Claire eased the box forward. Dust fell onto her jacket and hair. "Oh, perfect. You should have let me hold it." "You were holding it." Supportively. She lowered the carton to the workbench. The tape had dried and lifted at the corners. Claire peeled it back without using scissors. Inside, beneath a layer of brown packing paper, lay pieces of gray foam board, basswood strips, and clear plastic sheets. Her first model was on top. It was a small public pavilion she had designed during her first year of college. The roof tilted to one side. 3 columns had yellowed where she used too much glue, and a tiny cardboard person leaned against the entrance as if overcome by the building. Claire lifted it with both hands. "This is horrible." "It's not horrible. It violates gravity. You were learning. I threw this out. You put it beside the trash. That means I threw it out. It means you lacked follow-through." She turned the model slowly. The assignment had been due 2 months after Frank's death. Claire came home to build it because the college workshop felt too crowded. For 3 nights she sat at his bench cutting foam board while I wandered the house in his sweatshirt and forgot to eat unless she placed food in front of me. On the 4th morning, she found me asleep in his recliner and put a blanket over me before leaving for class. I had remembered the blanket. I had not remembered who needed sleep more. "Why did you keep this?" she asked. "Because it was the first thing you finished after your father died." I got a C. "You finished it." "My professor said the roof had no structural logic." "Your professor wore sandals with socks." He was still right. She placed the model gently on the bench. Beneath it were 2 later projects, cleaner and more confident. One was a small museum with a long white ramp. The other was an apartment building built around a central courtyard. Claire touched each one, naming mistakes I could not see. "You kept all the bad ones. I kept the early ones." "Why not the good ones?" "You took those with you." She looked at me. It was true in more ways than I had intended. We emptied the carton. At the bottom lay a roll of sketches tied with twine, a metal ruler, and the first set of drafting pencils I had bought her. The tin was dented. 3 pencils remained. "You said these were too expensive," Claire said. "They were. You bought them anyway. You needed them. I wanted them. You said you needed them. I was 19. Everything I wanted was a need. Some things don't change." She smiled, then opened the tin. 1 pencil had been sharpened almost to nothing. Claire balanced it across her palm. "I used this one on the night Dad died. You weren't drawing." "No. I was writing down phone numbers. I waited." the hospital, Aunt Linda, the funeral home. She closed the tin. You kept asking me what we were supposed to do next. I don't remember. I do. I'm sorry. I know you were in shock. That doesn't mean you should have had to manage it. There wasn't anyone else. There was me. Not that night. I lowered myself onto the stool. Claire stood across from me with the pencil tin in her hands. When did I become your mother? I asked. She flinched. You didn't. I'm not asking to defend myself. I want to know. She leaned back against the workbench. For a while after Dad died. How long? I don't know. Months. Years. Sometimes. The answer was quiet. I thought of all the ways I had described those years. I went back to work. I kept the house. I made sure Claire returned to college. I survived because I had no choice. None of my stories included Claire answering the phone, sorting sympathy cards, or driving home every weekend because the furnace frightened me. I had made myself the only adult in the picture. She had been 19, technically grown and nowhere near ready. I'm sorry, I said. Claire looked down. For what part? For letting you take care of me and then telling the story like I took care of everyone. She sat on the edge of the workbench. I wanted to, she said. I know. If you had pushed me away, I would have thought you didn't need me. I needed you too much. You don't have to make it ugly. It was ugly sometimes. It was also us. I looked at her. She was right. That was the trouble with honest stories. They rarely allowed you to assign one meaning and go home. Claire set the pencil tin beside the wooden level. We were good then, too, she said. Not just damaged. I know. We watched terrible movies. You chose terrible movies. You made popcorn in a saucepan and burned it every time. Your father bought that pot. That had nothing to do with your ability to use it. We laughed softly. For a while, we sorted the models. Claire chose to keep the crooked pavilion and the pencil tin. She placed the museum in the donation pile, then moved it back twice. I did not advise her. Near the bottom of the second shelf, I found Frank's old transistor radio. I changed the batteries and it came on with a burst of static. A country song filled the room, followed by an advertisement for replacement windows. Claire brushed dust from the workbench. The award committee wrote a biography, she said. My hand stopped on the radio. What biography? For the program and the introduction. I didn't read the program, I know. Why? You were in it. I turned down the radio. She kept her eyes on the dust beneath her fingers. The draft said I was raised by a widowed mother who worked long hours to support my education. The sentence entered the room carefully, and I asked them to remove it. I did not answer. They made it sound like I came from tragedy, she continued. Everything after that was about overcoming loss, overcoming limited means, overcoming a small town. It made you sound exhausted and me sound rescued. You could have changed the language. I did. To what? That I was the first person in my family to enter the field. That still included your family, barely, but not me. She looked at me then. No. The radio announcer began discussing traffic on a highway 50 miles away. I switched it off. Did Daniel know? Yes. Judith? No. Did you tell anyone why you removed it? Daniel. And what did he say? That I should tell you before the dinner? I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because Daniel had spent weeks apologizing around a fact he already knew. You didn't? No. Then Judith asked who I was, and I had spent 3 weeks practicing a version of my life where nobody could feel sorry for me. So you called me someone who helped. I didn't plan those exact words, but you planned the absence. Her face tightened. Yes. The honesty hurt more cleanly than the explanations had. I looked at the crooked pavilion on the bench. I had kept it because Claire finished it after Frank died. In my version, it proved she had survived because I had kept her going. In hers, she had built it while holding me together. Both stories had used the other person as scaffolding. I wasn't ashamed of you, she said. You were ashamed of needing me. She nodded once. And you thought those people would think less of you if they knew. I thought they would see sacrifice before they saw work. Your work, yes. Not mine. No. She began crying without wiping her face. I wanted one night where I didn't owe my success to grief or luck or a mentor or a mother who ate tuna for 7 months. I looked at the pearl earrings in her ears. She had worn them with jeans and Frank's jacket. You could have had that night, I said. You didn't have to take my name away to get it. I know. No, you know now. That night, you made a choice. Yes. The word broke between us. I stood and went to the open garage door. Cold air moved across the driveway. Somewhere nearby, a lawnmower stopped, then started again. Claire remained behind me. I need you to understand, she said. I do understand. Then why does that sound worse? Because understanding why you hurt me doesn't make it hurt less. She came to stand a few feet away. Can you forgive me? I looked at my daughter, at Frank's jacket around her shoulders, and the drafting pencil still clutched in one hand. I don't know, I said. Her face fell. It was not the answer she wanted. For once, I let it be the answer I had. Claire nodded. Fair, she said. I had expected an argument. The lack of one left me with nowhere to place the words I had prepared. She set the drafting pencil beside the model and wiped her face with the sleeve of Frank's jacket. Don't do that, I said. What? You'll smear dust into the fabric. She looked at the sleeve, then at me. I'm sorry, I said. Reflex. It's fine. No, it's irritating. Yes. We stood there in the workshop with the garage door open, correcting and being corrected in increments too small to call progress. Claire picked up the crooked pavilion. I don't need you to forgive me today. That's generous. I'm trying not to rotate that sentence. I looked at her. She held my gaze. I did make a choice that night, she said. Before the dinner, I chose a version of my life that made me feel less dependent. Then when Judith asked who you were, I protected that version instead of you. Her voice shook, but she continued. I was ashamed that I still needed my mother. I made you smaller so I could look self-made. I'm sorry. There was nothing vague in it. No apology for my reaction, no sentence about stress, no request to acknowledge how difficult the evening had been for her. I sat on the stool again. Claire placed the model beside me. I don't know what to do with that, I said. You don't have to do anything. You came 2 hours to clear the workshop. You came to apologize. I came to do both. That sounds dangerously efficient. Her mouth moved at one corner. I am your daughter. The words went through me so quickly I had to look down. On the floor, the 3 piles had lost their boundaries. A box of useful tools sat beside cracked plastic buckets. Bent nails weighted with a wooden level nobody had claimed. Frank would have objected to the disorder, though he had caused most of it. I'm sorry too, I said. Claire sat on an overturned crate across from me. For telling stories that made your success a monument to my sacrifice. For helping without asking and then acting injured when you didn't want it. For making you feel like my love came with an invoice. She nodded slowly. I knew you loved me. I know. But I wanted you to prove you understood the cost, constantly. Not constantly. She raised her eyebrows. Frequently. Yes. I'm not apologizing for the cost. I'm not asking you to. I would do most of it again. Most? The pearl earrings were absurd. You love those earrings. I love them on you. I hated tuna by February. Claire touched one pearl. You told me they were from a department store sale. They were. How much of a sale? Not enough. She laughed, then covered her mouth because laughing seemed disloyal to the seriousness of the moment. I let myself laugh too. We returned to the shelves. The workshop took another 3 hours. Claire kept the level, the pencil tin, the crooked pavilion, and the red toolbox. I kept the birdhouse, Frank's work apron, and one screwdriver from each row, despite not respecting the distinction. We donated most of the useful tools. We threw away the broken vise after Claire photographed it from 3 angles, which seemed excessive but cost nothing. At the back of a cabinet, we found Frank's favorite coffee mug. The handle had broken years before his death and been reattached with yellowing glue. "Keep," Claire said. "Trash." She stared at me. "Who are you?" "It leaks. He loved it. He loved it before it leaked." She poured water into it at the utility sink. A thin stream ran from the crack and down her wrist. "Fine," she said. "Trash." I placed it gently in the bag. By 3, the workbench was clear, except for the radio and a pale rectangle where the red toolbox had sat. Claire swept the floor while I wiped the shelves. "What are you going to do with this room?" she asked. "I'm not sure. You could move the sewing table out here. It's cold in winter. Space heater." "That seems like something Daniel would suggest." "He did." "You discussed my garage?" "He asks about you." "That's nice." "He also wants to know if you're still angry about the hammer. I'm preserving the story for future generations." She rested the broom against the wall. "Are you definitely staying in the house?" "Yes." She nodded. No protest. No mention of the apartment, the shower rail, or coffee whenever we wanted. "I think that's right," she said. "I'm sorry it hurts you." "I'm sorry too. Do you believe me?" She considered it. Yes. I believed her too. That did not repair everything. It only removed the need for one of us to win. At the car, Claire put the model on the passenger seat and fastened the seatbelt around it. "That's ridiculous," I said. "It has no structural logic. Drive carefully." She looked at me over the roof. "You can say that." "Thank you." "Just not every 5 minutes. I've never said it every 5 minutes. You texted me at 3 separate rest stops when I drove to Nashville. It was raining. It was 6 years ago, and you still defend it. You arrived safely." She shook her head, smiling. Before she got into the car, I reached into my pocket. My fingers touched nothing. For a moment, I had forgotten that her house key was no longer on my ring, and mine was no longer on hers. Claire followed the movement. "What?" "Nothing. You were looking for something. Your key." Her expression changed. "I don't need it," she said. "It was yours a long time. You asked for it back." "I know. I should have knocked more. I should have told you to before I became furious that you didn't." She opened the car door. "Keep it," she said, "for now." I did. 3 evenings later, Claire called while I was pinning fabric in the back bedroom. The sewing table stood beneath the window. 2 of her boxes remained in the closet because she had run out of room in the car, and I had discovered their presence did not prevent oxygen from entering the room. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing." "Are you driving?" "No." "Did Daniel hurt himself with the hammer?" "He's making dinner." "That doesn't answer my question." "He's fine." "Then why are you calling?" A pause. "I thought we could talk." "About what?" "I don't know. We lasted 6 minutes. She told me Daniel had bought basil and planted it in a pot without making drainage holes. I told her Walter had torn a sleeve while bowing to an empty theater. Claire said she had 3 presentations due and hated all of them. My first instinct was to ask if she wanted me to review them. I put the needle down. "Do you want advice or do you want me to agree they're terrible?" I asked. "Can you agree without seeing them?" "I've done more with less. They're terrible. Appalling." "Thank you." We talked for another 20 minutes. The calls became a loose habit. Not daily. Daily would have frightened both of us. Sometimes Claire phoned while walking home from the office. Sometimes I called after rehearsal. We practiced stopping before one of us turned the conversation into a test. I failed often. When Claire mentioned that the basil had died, I sent instructions for drilling drainage holes. She replied, "We have the internet." I wrote back, "Then use it." An hour later, I apologized. She failed too. When I said Anita and I were meeting Marjorie for lunch in Wexler, Claire asked whether we had formed a support group. I told her jealousy was unattractive. She called back that evening and admitted she had been jealous. The restaurant carpet was worse than Marjorie remembered. The soup was good. The play ended after 3 weekends. Walter's trousers survived. Celia asked whether I would stay for the next production. "What is it?" I asked. "A musical." "No, we have 12 skirts. I'll think about it." Celia smiled because she had learned my language. The roses in the blue pitcher lasted 9 days. When I finally threw them away, I kept one dried bloom on the windowsill without deciding why. Frank's workshop no longer felt sealed in time. I moved the radio into the kitchen and hung the work apron in the new sewing room. The empty shelves remained empty. One Tuesday, Claire called while I was eating dinner. "What are you having?" she asked. "Soup." "From a can?" "No." "Did Anita make it?" "I can still make soup." That wasn't criticism. It sounded like an investigation. "Start again?" I put down my spoon. "Start again." She took a breath. "We're having people over Friday. Just 4 from my office and Judith." I waited. "I'd like you to come." "To help?" "No." "To cook?" "No." "To make sure Daniel doesn't use his hammer on the furniture?" "He has been specifically warned." "What would I be doing?" "Having dinner." The answer sounded simple. Simplicity made me cautious. "Why?" "Because I want you there." "Does Judith know?" "Know what?" "That I'm coming." "Not yet." I pictured the ballroom, the white roses, Judith's polite smile moving past me. Claire continued before I could answer. "You don't have to prove anything. I'm not planning a correction or an announcement. I'm asking my mother to dinner. My mother, not loudly, not for anyone else." "What should I bring?" I asked. "Nothing." "Wine?" "We have wine." "Potatoes?" "Absolutely not." I smiled into the quiet kitchen. "All right," I said. "I'll come." On Friday afternoon, I stood in my kitchen holding a bottle of wine. Claire had told me to bring nothing. Wine was close to nothing. It required no preparation, and if she already had enough, it could sit quietly in a cabinet until another difficult family occasion. I put it back. Then I wrapped a loaf of bread in a towel. I unwrapped it. At 4:30, Anita came through the back door and found me staring at an empty canvas shopping bag. "What are you doing?" "Not bringing anything." "You're doing it very intensely. I don't want to arrive empty-handed. Your hands aren't empty. You have fingernails and opinions. She asked me to dinner. And, I should contribute, she told you not to. What if the food is late? Then hunger will teach everyone patience. What if she forgot dessert? People have lived through that." I folded the canvas bag and put it in a drawer. Anita nodded approvingly. "Look at you, leaving people to their own consequences. I'm bringing my sewing kit in the car. That's unrelated and deeply unwell. I left it anyway." Claire opened the tall front door before I reached the bell. She wore black pants and a soft blue blouse, and her hair was loose around her shoulders. No apron. "You're early," she said. 8 minutes. "I know. Should I circle the block?" "No." She stepped back. I held up both hands. "Nothing?" Claire smiled. "Come in." The house smelled like garlic, bread, and something citrusy. Music played from the kitchen. The dining table was set with plates that did not match, linen napkins and low candles that looked as if people could speak over them without planning. Daniel came down the stairs in shirt sleeves. "Did you bring potatoes?" I was threatened. "I checked her trunk," Claire said. "You did not." I considered it. Daniel kissed my cheek. "We ordered dinner." "You ordered?" "From the Italian place on 9th. You could have done that at spring dinner." Claire looked at me. I heard how the sentence sounded. "I mean, it's a good idea," I said. "You get to enjoy your guests." "That's the plan." "Where do you need me?" Claire pointed toward the living room. "On the sofa. I can carry something." "There is nothing to carry. I could light the candles." "They're not ready to be lit. What kind of candles have emotional readiness?" "Mom." "All right." I sat. For 7 full minutes, nobody gave me a task. It was surprisingly uncomfortable. Daniel brought me a glass of wine without asking whether I wanted to open the bottle. Claire adjusted the music, checked her phone, and sat beside me while we waited for the guests. "How was your drive?" she asked. Dry. How's the musical? Too much singing. That's generally the structure. The leading man sweats through 3 shirts. Are you responsible for those? I am now. The bell rang. Claire stood. I stood with her by habit. You can stay, she said. I'm greeting people. That's allowed. Judith entered first, carrying red tulips and wearing a gray suit that made my green award dinner dress seem theatrical in memory. Behind her came 3 people from Claire's office. Sonia Blake, a project manager with silver rings on every finger. Marcus Lee, who had worked with Claire on the Hanover Library, and Elena Ruiz, a younger architect whose bright orange coat seemed designed to challenge the entryway. Claire took Judith's flowers. You remember Daniel, she said, and this is my mother, Ruth Mercer. The sentence was not emphasized. She did not pause before mother. Her hand rested lightly on my shoulder rather than holding my elbow. Judith looked at me. Of course, she said. We met at the award dinner. Yes, Claire said. You did. A flicker passed through Judith's face. Perhaps she remembered the introduction. Perhaps she did not. Claire did not explain, and I was grateful. Judith shook my hand. I've heard so much about you. That must be recent, I said. Claire inhaled. Judith laughed. Claire said you were funny. She says difficult when I'm not in the room. I say it when you're in the room too, Claire said. The others came in, and the moment moved on. No correction, no speech. No one gathered around to understand what had been restored. Claire hung coats, Daniel poured wine, and I learned that Sonia was moving into a house with no closets. Marcus had recently taken up pottery, and Elena believed every chair designed before 1975 was trying to injure her. When the food arrived, Daniel paid the delivery driver. Claire carried foil containers to the kitchen. I followed. You can sit, she said. I know. She opened one container and stared at the pasta inside. We ordered the other one. Call them. It'll take an hour. What is this? Penny with mushrooms. Does anybody dislike mushrooms? Judith. Of course she does. Claire looked toward the dining room. Judith was explaining something to Marcus with her glasses in one hand. She could probably silence the entire meal by putting them back on. I can make something, I said. Claire glanced at me. The offer sat between us, familiar and dangerous. Do you want help? I asked. Yes, she said, but not a replacement dinner. What do you want? Can you help me move the mushroom pasta to a serving bowl while I call the restaurant? Certainly. She handed me a spoon. That was all. I did not inspect the refrigerator for better options. I did not correct her serving bowls. I transferred pasta while Claire called and arranged a refund. Judith ate chicken and salad. The Republic survived. At the table, conversation turned to the Hanover Library. Marcus told a story about Claire climbing onto the roof during a rainstorm because a contractor insisted a leak was imaginary. She came down soaked and furious, he said. The leak was real, Claire said. Everyone knew it was real. The contractor didn't. The contractor knew after you put a wet ceiling tile on his desk. Judith smiled over her wine glass. Claire has always been persuasive. She gets that from Ruth, Daniel said. I looked at him. Ruth once convinced a hotel doorman not to interfere while she escaped in a cab, he added. Claire put down her fork. That story does not need to become family entertainment. No, I said, it doesn't. Daniel nodded and returned to his chicken. It was a small moment, but Claire saw it. I had not taken the opening. I had not told the table how much the cab cost, what she had called me, or how long I cried after reaching home. Later, Elena asked how I knew so much about fabric after I mentioned the loose stitching on her coat cuff. I help with costumes at the Kenton Players, I said. You make costumes? Sometimes. Mostly I stop grown men from splitting their pants. She saved a show, Claire said. I saved Walter. Same thing, according to Walter. Elena smiled. How long have you been doing that? Not long. I started after deciding not to move here. The table quieted just enough to be noticeable. Claire lifted her wine glass, then set it down. "My mother has a whole life in Kenton," she said. I forgot to ask what she'd be leaving. There was no self-punishment in her voice, no invitation for the room to absolve her. Judith nodded. "We tend to measure a move by what waits at the destination." "And boxes," Daniel said. "We measured many boxes. Most of them were Claire's," I said. "They were historically important. You owned a lamp without a cord. It was sculptural." The conversation recovered. After dessert, Judith stood near the front door and told Claire the evening had been lovely. Marcus offered to take the mushroom pasta home. Sonia rescued the tulips from where Daniel had left them in the sink. Elena shook my hand before putting on her orange coat. "I'd like to see the next play," she said. "Only if you have patience for singing. I'm an architect. I sit through zoning meetings. You'll be fine." Claire watched us from beside the door. "This is my mother" had been enough to begin. The rest I could tell myself. When the last guest left, Daniel gathered wine glasses. "Sit," Claire told him. "You cooked. I ordered. You supervised. I opened containers. Then you've done enough." He looked at me. "Is this a trap? Take the rest where you can find it." He went upstairs carrying his wine. Claire began stacking plates. "Would you like help?" I asked. She considered the sink. "Yes, would you dry?" "I would." We worked side by side. She washed and I dried. Neither of us corrected the other's method, though Claire used too much soap and I placed one plate in the wrong cabinet. The award stood on a shelf in her office across the hall. Candlelight caught its sharp glass point. "It's beautiful," I said. Claire followed my eyes. "I thought you hated it." "I hated the evening." "Do you hate what it means?" "No." She turned back to the sink. "I'm proud of you," I said. "I know." I dried another plate. I was proud before I understood what the work was. Then I made your work proof of mine. You did. I'm trying not to. I know that too. She rinsed soap from her hands. "Do you forgive me?" The question was quiet. She did not look at me while asking. "Yes," I said. Claire closed her eyes. "But I don't want the old arrangement back. I don't either. You might think you do when a repairman gives you a 6-hour window. I'll survive. And I won't move. I know. I'm keeping the house, the music group, the theater, Anita watching my lights from Belgium. I know. I need you to invite me, not plan around me." She nodded. "I need you to ask before you help, and tell me when I'm telling your story instead of mine. You won't like it. I don't like most useful information." Claire laughed and leaned against the counter. "I miss you," she said. "I miss you too. You're right here. I missed you while I was right beside you at the award dinner." Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. "I'm sorry. I know." She stepped toward me. The hug was not dramatic. I still held a dish towel, and her wet hands left marks on the back of my sweater. We stood in the kitchen until Daniel called from upstairs asking where the extra toothpaste was. Claire pulled away. "Second drawer in the guest bathroom," I said. She smiled. "You still know where everything is. I organized it." "Of course you did. I stayed in their guest room that night." The next morning, someone knocked softly on the door. I opened it. Claire stood in the hall with 2 cups of coffee. "Regular milk," she said. "All of it?" I watched it happen. She handed me a cup. "Do you need anything?" I asked. "No. No presentations, no delivery, no potatoes, nothing." We carried the coffee downstairs and sat beside each other at the kitchen island. The house was quiet. Pale sunlight touched the brick wall, the glass light above the dining table, and the tulips Sonia had placed in a pitcher. Claire did not ask me to stay longer. I did not offer. We drank our coffee while it was still hot.